Warrior Lore. Chapter 4991. Looking at the crowd, Zichen's expression was relaxed. There was a faint smile at the corner of his mouth, but his eyes were gradually turning cold. Zichen, today is the day you die, Derek shouted. His saber had already been snatched away by Zichen, and he had found another one from somewhere. Is that so? Zichen put down the long stick in his hand and switched the wooden saber in his right hand to his left. He looked at Derek. I haven't killed you yet, but I didn't expect you to come to your deaths. Cut the crap. We didn't kill you last time, but we'll definitely kill you today. Derek approached and kicked away the firewood that Zichen had piled up. The others approached and cleared the firewood in their respective directions, but they didn't immediately attack. Instead, they surrounded Zichen. Zichen looked around and slowly turned in a circle. He stared at the other 6 people. It's understandable that the 6 of them are courting death. Why do the 6 of you have to do this? A man with a wooden sword sneered. If we were afraid of you before, we would have been afraid of you. But after you said that, it means that you don't have the confidence, and you can't live. Your confidence is really unique. Zichen glanced at him, then looked at the other 5 people. I'll give you a chance. If you leave now, I can pretend that nothing happened. Humph. Deliberately mystifying. Do you think we're scared? A man with a saber snorted. Birds die for food, and men die for wealth. Since you've made your choice, I'll kill you first. Zichen said, the 6 of them deserve to die. You're just courting death. You talk too much. Derek's voice came from behind. The wooden saber in his hand slashed down, bringing with it a sharp sound of wind. The smile on Zichen's face disappeared at this time, and it became incomparably cold. This was because the moment Derek moved, the others followed suit. Obviously, they planned to gang up on him. With each person taking a saber, it would be 12 sabers. The reason why he was so confident was because he firmly believed that Zichen's saber would not be able to kill them. Zichen did not use his saber. Instead, he took out his bone staff. The moment the bone staff touched his hand, an oppressive aura spread out. Turning around, his entire body, along with the bone staff, landed on Derek's body. A misty light scattered, and the wooden blade in Derek's hand, as well as half of his head, disappeared in the light. Shwa. Then, Zichen continued to swing the bone stick, spinning it in a circle. Wherever the bone cudgel passed, weapons would be destroyed one after another. At the same time, there were some people who had gotten too close to the front and even lost their arms. Such a scene caused everyone's hearts to be alarmed, and they immediately retreated. At this moment, Zichen's figure flashed, and he looked at the man who had spoken earlier. The man's face was filled with fear as he retreated. Zichen said coldly, I said that I would kill you first. Naturally, I have to keep my word. As soon as he finished speaking, the bone club smashed down. The other party was extremely frightened and raised his arm to block. Wong. Wherever the bone cudgel passed, the other party's arm disappeared, and even half of his body was gone. Ah, the other party screamed in fear, his voice filled with hysterical fear. There was no way to save such an injury. Seeing this, the others retreated again in fear. You want to leave? Is that possible? Zichen's expression was cold. He moved forward again, and the bone cudgel landed on the second person. With a loud bang, the other party's body was sent flying. When he landed on the ground, a part of his body had disappeared. The other party immediately took out a portion of extreme energy and tried to refine it in fear. The weapon in Zichen's hand was too terrifying. Now, Tommy and the others finally understood how Zichen survived back then. With such a weapon, he was naturally not afraid of those law-breaking beasts. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. A person retreated in fear. Seeing Zichen chasing after him, he begged for mercy. Too late. Zichen's eyes were cold as he smashed down with the bone cudgel. Bang! The other party's body collapsed and fell in the distance. After that, Zichen did not finish him off. Instead, he rushed to the next person. Tommy and the other 5 obviously had a grudge against Zichen, so they had to die. Zichen chose to reconcile last time, but it did not mean that he would not kill them again. As for the other 2, it was purely out of greed that Zichen killed them first. These 6 people had to pay the price for their greed. They fled in different directions, but their speed was not as fast as Zichen's. As long as Zichen's bone cudgel landed, they would lose half their lives and have to stay to recover. Otherwise, their bodies would disappear. Because they were not Zichen's main target, Tommy and the other four fled in another direction. The fear in their hearts had already reached its limit. At the same time, they were deeply regretful. If they had known that Zichen was so powerful, they would not have come to find trouble with him. Now, all of them were going to die. But at the same time, there was also a doubt in their hearts. Why did Zichen have a bone cudgel? Whether it was a human or a law-breaking beast, after death, their bodies could not exist in this world and would immediately disappear. Bang! The last person fell. Zichen turned his head and looked at Tommy and the other four. In the face of death, they were running with all their might. At this moment, they had already run far away. Zichen chased after them now, but he could only catch up to one person at most. He did not chase after them. Instead, he put away the bone cudgel and walked toward the few who were still alive and desperately recovering. Don't kill me, Zichen. Please don't kill me. I have power. I can give you power. A person fell to the ground, part of his body missing. At this moment, seeing Zichen walking over, he immediately begged for mercy. I gave you a chance, but unfortunately, you did not cherish it. Zichen raised his wooden saber and slashed forward. Puff. The other party's head left his body. This was a fatal injury. No matter how much extreme energy he used, it could not save his life. The next moment, his body disappeared. Then, Zichen held the wooden saber in his hand and walked to the side. Everyone was either begging for mercy or cursing. Zichen walked past them and killed them one by one. In the end, Zichen came in front of Derek. The other party was still desperately struggling to survive. Even if I die, you will die too. Seeing Zichen approaching, Derek knew that he had no hope of survival. He said coldly, "Your weapon is extraordinary," but they all ran away. In order to survive, they will definitely send the news back. Perhaps others do not dare to deal with you, but the city lord does. So, you will still die in the end. Zichen was amused when he heard this. You are also a weirdo. Not only did you die, but you also want your companions to die with you. Companions, my ass. We are just using each other. I met you that day. If you were not there, it would have been one of the 6 of us. In Zichen's hand, the wooden saber slashed. Derek died and disappeared. Chapter 4992. Tommy and the other 4 fled back in a sorry state. Zichen's combat strength was too frightening. Even if they were given a few more guts, they would not dare to target Zichen again. The regret in their hearts had long reached the extreme. If they had known this would happen, they would not have come again no matter what. But now, the two sides were already at the point of no return. As long as Zichen did not die, the few of them would definitely die. They even guessed that Zichen, who came back again, would definitely block the door again. So after returning to the city, Tommy and the others immediately shouted, "Murder! Zichen killed people outside." Many people walked out of their rooms when they heard the news and saw Tommy and the other 4. Derek was gone. Jacker and the people in his team were all killed by Zichen. Tommy and the others shouted again and again. When Zichen left, 2 teams of people followed him out. Everyone naturally guessed what they were going to do. They did not expect to lose a team of people so quickly. For a moment, everyone was very shocked. So many people. How did they all die? Zichen has a weapon made of bones. It's very terrifying. That's an invincible weapon. Wooden soldiers will break when they are swept by it. That weapon is too terrifying. It's invincible. Hearing the shouts of these people, many people's faces changed. What? Bone soldier? Nothing can exist in this world. How can there be a bone soldier? Everyone was shocked. No wonder Zichen dared to go out alone. It turned out that he had such a weapon with him. In that case, last time Zichen blocked the door, he still hid his strength. Yes, that weapon is very terrifying. Tang Misai and the others used the fear in their hearts to describe how powerful and terrifying that bone weapon was. They described in detail how extraordinary it was, and even added some details to their stories. Zichen's combat strength is not strong at all. It's just that the bone soldier is too powerful. Without the bone soldier, any one of us can kill him. These people were working hard to introduce the extraordinariness of the bone soldier. The city lord appeared, and the old man. The city lord turned to look at the old man. What do you think? The old man said, they said that because they wanted you to hear it. Maybe they thought you could kill Zichun. The city lord asked, then do you think I can succeed? The old man shook his head. Can't succeed? I don't know. The old man turned around and returned to his room. The bonfire burned and night fell. Zichun sat there cross-legged. He had fully recovered from his previous consumption. Right now, he was considering whether or not he should return. The wooden soldiers that had been destroyed earlier were all thrown into the flames. These weapons were made of better materials and burned more vigorously. Gusts of chilly wind appeared, and law-breaking beasts appeared. Zichun's eyes glinted. When he saw a law-breaker beast, he rushed forward quickly. The bone staff whistled through the air and struck the beast's head. The law-shattering beast let out a wail and tumbled into the distance. A light flashed beneath Zichun's feet as he sped up. The second strike landed, and the law-breaker beast howled in agony. After that, he remained motionless. A small vortex of extreme energy appeared on its own. Infinite light shone, like a small galaxy. Swish! The law-breaking beast disappeared, leaving behind 9 streams of energy. When Zichun turned around, he found that there were already 3 law-breaking beasts here. With a roll, Zichun quickly picked up the extreme energy on the ground. The skilled and daring Zichun quickly charged towards the second law-breaker beast. At this moment, the 3 law-breaking beasts all rushed towards Zichun. With the bone staff in hand, Zichun didn't have to worry about his life at all. His left hand recovered energy, and the bone staff in his right hand kept smashing around. In the blink of an eye, the 3 law-breaking beasts died one after another. This harvest was not small at all. With the immortal spiritual eye, the night here was like day for Zichun. Zichun picked up the energy on the ground and returned to the bonfire. He sat cross-legged and cultivated. Gusts of chilly wind blew around, but no law-breaking beast appeared. With the bone staff in hand, Zichun opened his eyes from time to time to look around. Still, no law-breaking beast appeared. Until the sky brightened, the bonfire extinguished by itself. Zichun picked up the wooden blade and left. As for the wooden staff, it turned into flames last night and disappeared. After thinking about it, Zichun decided to return to Lawbreaking City. Other things aside, at least it was a place to stay. After returning, Zichun saw Tommy and the others. He didn't know what they were saying to others, but they looked very excited. When the 5 of them saw Zichun, their hearts skipped a beat. However, considering that this was a city and fighting was prohibited, they weren't afraid. Zichun walked towards Tommy with a cold expression. The others looked at Zichun strangely. At first, Tommy didn't care. However, when he saw Zichun walking towards him, his expression changed. What do you want? Zichun didn't speak and kept walking forward. Tommy stood there and scolded angrily. Zichun, do you know what you're doing? This is Lawbreaking City. Fighting is prohibited. Didn't you hear what the Castellan told you last time? Do you still have the Castellan in your eyes? Zichun continued walking. Tommy felt something was wrong and shouted, Castellan, Zichun wants to fight here. He wants to break the rules. The others were looking at Zichun. They didn't think that Zichun would really dare to fight. At most, he was just scaring them. At this moment, Zichun took out the bone staff and smashed it down. Bang! Tommy was sent flying. An uproar broke out in the surroundings. Everyone's eyes widened in shock. They didn't think that Zichun would really dare to fight here. Tommy was sent flying. He screamed for help in fear and took out energy to replenish his energy. Zichun walked closer and smashed the bone staff again. This time, he directly destroyed half of his opponent's body. Then, Zichun turned his head and looked to the side. He didn't care about Tommy's life. It was too difficult for him to survive. Lu Fu and Wiley turned around and ran. At this moment, their eyes were filled with fear. Because Zichun used the bone staff, he obviously didn't plan to hide his strength. This time, they were really in danger. They screamed for help, but who dared to stand up and help at this time? Everyone looked at Zichun and the bone staff in his hand. Tommy and the others weren't lying. This bone staff was indeed extraordinary. Castellan! Wiley and the others shouted again, but it was useless. The Castellan didn't seem to hear them and didn't appear. Zichen quickly caught up and smashed the bone staff. Facing the bone staff, they couldn't resist at all. In the end, they had no choice but to run to the Castellan manor. That might be the only place that could save them. Zichen stood outside the Castellan manor with killing intent in his eyes. His emotions fluctuated violently, and his heartbeat sped up. Wiley and the others hid inside and looked at him with provocative eyes, as if saying, "Do you dare to come in?" Zichen walked in. Chapter 4993. Zichen stepped into the city lord's residence. After just one step, the power around him increased. It was silent, and there were no signs. In an instant, Zichen felt that the power in his body had increased significantly. At the same time, a powerful aura spread out. 2 powers. Seeing this scene, the few of them were in complete despair. They originally thought that the city lord could help and maybe kill Zichen. But now, Zichen had 2 powers. It was obviously impossible for the city lord to help. The original city lord did intend to come out and stop it. After all, the other party was at his doorstep. As the publicly recognized city lord, he had to stand up. However, after Zichen's aura reached 2 powers, he stopped. He no longer cared about what was happening outside. The cries for help quickly turned into curses. They were not cursing Zichen, but the city lord. The curses quickly disappeared. Zichen cupped his fists in the direction of the city lord's room, apologized, put away the bone staff, and left. When he walked back to his residence, everyone looked at Zichen in shock. 2 powers. His realm was comparable to the city lord's. Moreover, he had the bone staff. Perhaps even the city lord was no match for him. Zichen returned to his room and sat cross-legged. Zichen closed his eyes. Around him, countless precepts appeared. He had never seen these laws before. At this moment, they appeared one by one. However, they were very blurry. They flashed past his eyes like flowing light. This scene was like Zichen standing in the Milky Way again and seeing infinite light. This feeling had been there since he broke through. That was why he hurried back. He did not know what this meant, but he felt that he had to make a choice. The countless rays of light represented the power of countless laws in the Milky Way. At this moment, Zichen had a feeling that he should go to the Milky Way again to take a look. It seemed that everything he had encountered after coming here was related to the Milky Way. For example, the extreme vortex in the soul refining land was like a small Milky Way. Another example was the vortex that swallowed the law-breaking beast body. Countless rays of light shone in front of Zichen. It was a magnificent sight. Zichen stood there motionlessly, allowing these rays of light to pass before his eyes. He still hadn't made a choice. Suddenly, these lights began to fade, as if they were about to leave. Zichen's expression changed slightly. He stretched out his hand, and as if he had touched the real Milky Way, he grabbed a ray of light. The next moment, Milky Way disappeared. Zichen opened his eyes. What he had just experienced was like an illusion. He was still in the room, and everything was normal around him. However, there was a ray of true light in his hand. Shwa. As this ray of light spread out from Zichen's palm, a message appeared in his mind. Spellbreaker. Destruction. Now, Zichen finally understood what the city lord meant. So that was how he obtained the spellbreaker technique. In fact, Zichen didn't know that the process of obtaining the spellbreaker technique was different from the city lord's. The city lord could only obtain it passively and had no choice. Zichen, on the other hand, had the right to choose. Zichen closed his eyes and simulated the power of this move in his mind. After a while, he opened his eyes and thrust his palm forward. Wong. A strange power surged out. The wall in front of Zichen instantly shattered and was completely destroyed. The huge commotion alarmed the nearby people once again. Zichen's face was a little pale. He looked down and saw that the 2 powers in his body had become extremely dim. The previous move had consumed too much of his energy. Immediately, Zichen took out a ray of extreme energy and began to refine it. Then, he walked out of the room. Many people in the distance looked in his direction. After sensing Zichen's weak aura, Everyone was very surprised. Zichen walked to the side. The building here was also empty, so he went in. The others looked at each other, not knowing why there were battle fluctuations in Zichen's room. There were no spell-breaker beasts here. However, the city lord guessed the reason. After seeing the ruined scene, his expression changed. Zichen stayed in the room for 2 more days. He didn't cause any more damage. He could clearly sense the power of destruction. Unless it was necessary, it was better not to use it. The power was extraordinary, but the consumption was too great. As for why he had broken through, Zichen didn't know. He guessed that it might have something to do with the mysterious heart. If Zichen went back now, he would definitely be able to kill Seuss. Unfortunately, he didn't find the way back. On the 3rd day, Zichen walked out of his room and went to the city lord's residence. The old man told him that Zichen was not in the city. Zichen sat with the old man and talked about some things. Finally, he asked the old man if he knew the way back. The old man shook his head and smiled bitterly. How could there be a way back? In this place, everyone was working hard to survive. Almost everyone's limit was 1 power. For a long time, besides the city lord, only Zichen had a 2nd power. The city lord was out hunting, and no one knew when he would return. Zichen planned to go back to the Milky Way to take a look. If the way back was there, he didn't mind giving it a try. In addition, he also planned to go to the land of soul refining to see if it was really possible to cultivate there. So, Zichen said goodbye to the old man and left with the wooden saber. With 2 powers protecting him and a lot of extreme energy around him, Zichen was not afraid of the spell-breaker beasts at night. That night, Zichen lit several bonfires. He sat in the center of the bonfire and closed his eyes to cultivate. The wooden saber was replaced with a bone staff. This thing could intimidate the spell-breaker beasts at night. That night, Zichen only encountered 1 spell-breaker beast. When it appeared, Zichen killed it with a swing of the bone staff. However, this time, he only received 5 strands of energy instead of the previous 9. This made Zichen's expression change slightly. Could it be that the spell-breaker beasts in the periphery were weaker, so they gave him less power? The next day, he continued on his way and arrived at the land of soul refining. It was still the same as before. Zichen approached and looked at the whirlpool. He used his immortal spiritual eye but still couldn't see anything. After that, he left. When the sky was about to turn dark, Zichen saw the old blind man's residence. At this time, the old man should be in his room. We'll stop here from now on and let that old thing provide us with energy. That's right. If he dares to slack off, we'll throw him into the Milky Way. Just as he approached, Zichen heard voices coming from the room. Zichen opened the door and saw 3 people sitting in the room. The old blind man was not here. Chapter 49-94. Get out. The 3 of them stared at Zichen with extremely cold eyes. Looking at the 3 strangers, Zichen retreated out of the room. Wait, leave the extreme energy behind. The 3 of them shouted again and immediately chased after him. Standing at the door, looking at Zichen in front of them, the 3 of them were dumbfounded. Because there were 2 strands of extreme energy around Zichen's body, his aura was much more terrifying than theirs. 2 strands of energy. One of them exclaimed, feeling incredulous. At the same time, he was also very confused as to why the other party had 2 strands of energy. Where are the people inside? Zichen looked at the 3 of them. The reason why he walked out of the room was because he didn't want to destroy the old man's residence. There's no one here. This is our residence. The one in the middle said, Who are you? Who told you to come here? Zichen suddenly moved forward. His speed was extremely fast. The wooden blade in his hand swept past. A ray of light flashed past. With a poof, the head of the person who spoke left his body. The other 2 were startled and immediately retreated to the side in fear. The speed was too fast. Even with extreme energy, they couldn't survive. Where are they? Zichen looked at the other 2 and asked again. The 2 of them were obviously scared silly. On the stone steps, one of them said in fear. After saying that, the 2 of them turned around and ran. They felt a strong killing intent from Zichen's eyes. Poof! Poof! Zichen chased after them and decisively killed the 2 of them. After that, Zichen went to the stone steps to find the old man. According to the old man's schedule, It was impossible for him to come out at night because there were unknown dangers at night. The three of them were obviously here to steal the old man's extreme energy, then force the old man to help them continue to fish for crystals to exchange for new energy. Zichun came to the bottom of the stone steps and first glanced to the side. The stone steps that belonged to him were already gone, not sure if it was taken back by the laws of heaven and earth. Zichun climbed up the stone steps. The old man heard the commotion behind him and said, "There's still nothing to be gained today. There's no point in being anxious." Zichun heard the elder's weak voice, and when he reached the top of the stairs, he saw the elder weakly sitting there. His body's light was no longer as bright, and his life force was continuously draining away. He would not be able to hold on for much longer. Zichun suddenly felt some regret. He shouldn't have killed the three of them so easily. He should have tortured them instead. He immediately took out a strand of power and handed it over. "Senior, recover." Zichun's eyes sparkled. He had already activated his immortal spiritual eye, so he didn't want to get lost here. "It's you?" When the old man recognized Zichun's voice, a hint of surprise appeared on his face. He immediately turned around. When he saw Zichun, he was even more surprised. "You actually broke through?" Turning one beam of power into two could also be considered a breakthrough. "Why are you back?" The old man asked another question. "Senior, please recover first. We'll talk about this after you've recovered." Zichun passed his energy over. The old man was simply too weak. The old man didn't refuse, because all the power he had accumulated over the years had already been plundered. After receiving it, he immediately recovered. Zichun sat on the edge, looking down at the bright Milky Way below. This is the entrance. Could it be the exit? After a while, the old man's power recovered. "Where are the three of them?" the old man asked. "Dead," Zichun said indifferently. The old man sighed and told him what happened during this period of time. On the day Zichun left, after killing the three corpse fishermen, everything returned to normal. The old man continued to fish during the day and went back to rest at night. Who knew that not long after, three people would suddenly appear. As soon as they saw the old man, they would punch and kick him, starting to steal his extreme energy. Not only that, the three of them actually stayed here and let the old man take care of them. Fortunately, Zichun came back today. Otherwise, with the old man's condition, he definitely wouldn't last more than 2 days. "Why are you back?" After the old man told him what happened, he asked Zichun doubtfully. "I wanted to see if there was an entrance here." Zichun said, "Just now, I had an idea." "What idea?" the old man asked. "I'm holding onto the lawn net." "Senior, put me down." Zichun's words scared the old man. "You really want to go in? Aren't you afraid of getting lost?" "I have this, so I shouldn't get lost. But for safety, I want to stay in the net." Zichun pointed at his eyes and said, "Senior, put me down, listen to my voice, then pull me up. If you can't hear me, then I'll pull the net in 15 minutes. The old man shook his head. "That's too risky. No one has ever tried it before. It's just a test. There shouldn't be a problem." The old man couldn't refuse Zichun's insistence, so he could only agree. Zichun adjusted his aura, ensuring that he was in peak condition before going into the net himself. The old man had also recovered. He slowly put Zichun into the Milky Way. Zichun's immortal spirit looked around. He was getting closer and closer to the Milky Way, and there was infinite light in front of his eyes. This scene was very much like choosing a Dharma breaker technique. Countless rays of light represented countless Tao rules. There were no other abnormalities around, and the Milky Way was still flowing quickly. Zichun touched the Milky Way, and in an instant, countless laws gathered towards his body. His feet gradually crystallized the moment they touched the Milky Way and were baptized. Zichun's expression changed. He thought of the crystals he had fished up and immediately shouted, "Senior, pull me up." He was still falling. Zichun shouted a few more times, but there was still no response. His legs had completely turned into crystals, and the crystals kept moving upwards, causing his body to continuously crystallize. After his neck had turned into crystals, the old man still didn't pull him up. Zichun had expected this in advance. The old man couldn't hear his voice. After that, Zichun's entire body turned into crystals. Just as his body was completely immersed in the Milky Way, He felt his thoughts become chaotic, as if his entire body was no longer under his control. This feeling was familiar, but he couldn't remember where he had seen it before. At this moment, apart from this chaotic feeling, the only thing that comforted Zichen was that his heart was still beating and his thoughts were still running. This meant that he hadn't lost himself or had not completely crystallized. At the same time, he was secretly glad that he was in the fishing net at this moment and not outside of it. Otherwise, facing the erosion of countless laws, he, who had turned into crystals, would probably be washed away very quickly. In this situation, 15 minutes seemed to be extremely long. Finally, the time was up. Zichen, who was in the crystal, saw himself gradually leaving the Milky Way. A moment later, he heard the old man's exclamation again. Then, Zichen seemed to have fallen into a deep sleep and completely lost consciousness. After an unknown period of time, Zichen woke up. When he opened his eyes, the sky was already bright. He was still at the top of the stone steps, and the old man was sitting next to him. That was close. Thinking back to what happened last night, Zichen sighed. Chapter 4995. Zichen gave up on the idea of continuing to explore the secrets of the Milky Way. If this continued, he would definitely get lost. Perhaps he could return, but the chances were too slim. It was not worth the risk. At dawn, the old man began to reel in the net. He had gained a crystal today. Zichen accompanied the old man to the extreme whirlpool. After the old man exchanged his energy, Zichen signaled the old man to wait for a moment. He threw 2 streams of power into it, and then his entire body entered the extreme vortex. The extreme whirlpool did not disintegrate his body. Zichen was in the middle. Light surged around him as if countless laws were changing in front of his eyes. The 2 streams of extreme energy that he threw in earlier were revolving around his body, protecting him. Zichen sat cross-legged and circulated his cultivation technique. His heart began to beat vigorously. However, he did not feel powerful until the 2 streams of energy were used up. He walked out of the extreme whirlpool. "How was it?" the old man asked. Zichen shook his head. "I didn't feel anything." Making Zichen waste 2 streams of energy for nothing, the old man felt very embarrassed and somewhat ashamed. "Senior, do you want to follow me to Shatter Fa City?" Zichen looked at the old man. Before he came, he had already told the old man about the situation in Shatter Fa City. He also told him about the law-breaking beasts. The old man was very surprised. The old man shook his head and refused. He was already used to this place. Zichen was worried that the old man would run into trouble again. The old man said that this was fate. He had been here for too long. He had forgotten many things. This time, when he was in danger and almost died, he seemed to have remembered many things. However, he was also tired of it. If he did not meet Zichen this time and disappeared, the old man would not hold any grudges. The old man watched as Zichen left. Zichen knew why the old man was unwilling to go to Shatter Fa City. It was because it was very difficult to survive there. He also felt the old man's emotions. Although he did not want to admit it, he had to. They were trapped. They were trapped in a place where the laws were completely different. On the way back, they still had to go through the night. Zichen did not start a fire. Instead, he stood on a high ground. This night, he found 2 law-breaking beasts and killed them with his bone staff. He also left the wooden saber that he had brought with him to the old man for self-defense. At the same time, he also gave most of his strength to the old man. Zichen would never come back, so this was the last thing he could do for the old man. As for the future, they could only meet again if fate wills it. But it was very likely that they would never meet again. The 2 lawbreaker beasts had only condensed 5 strands of power, even though Zichen did not think that they were weaker than the other lawbreaker beasts. After returning to the city lord still hadn't returned. Zichen did not have much extreme energy left, so he went out again at night. At night, Zichen sat in the middle of a bonfire. Not long after, waves of wind appeared. Zichen used his immortal spiritual eye and saw 4 lawbreaker beasts. Without saying a word, he picked up the bone club and started to attack. Bang! Bang! The powerful attacks landed, and the law-breaking beasts fell one after another. When all 4 of them were dead, Only 20 strands of power remained. It had actually decreased. Zichun was slightly stunned. After breaking through, the amount of extreme energy obtained will decrease. A voice came from the side. Zichun turned to look at the direction of the voice, and his eyes lit up. City Lord, why are you here? After seeing who it was, Zichun was a little surprised. The City Lord walked closer and sat beside Zichun. I saw the fire and thought that there was a team here. I didn't expect you to come out to hunt. No wonder you could survive that day alone. The City Lord stood in the distance and saw Zichun fighting the lawbreaker beasts. With the combination of his immortal spiritual eye and bone club, he was almost invincible. Tommy and the others were also unlucky to encounter such a Zichun. Your eye technique and bone weapon are not from this world, right? The City Lord asked. Zichun nodded. I brought them from the outside. As for why only they can appear, I don't really understand. The City Lord laughed bitterly. It's good that you don't understand. This place is full of strangeness. Not a single law can be used. It's strange to know what's going on. After that, the City Lord fell silent. Zichun sat beside him and didn't say anything. He wasn't good at talking to begin with. After a while, the City Lord said, "Shall we continue?" Zichun was stunned and turned to look at the City Lord. Actually, I came out this time to reap some benefits and then go deeper, the City Lord said. Of course, I hope that the two of us can go together. Zichun continued to look at the City Lord, but didn't say anything. The lawbreaker beasts you killed before were the most ordinary ones, the City Lord explained. Just like us, who have one strand of power. There are more that aren't ordinary? Zichun asked. Yes, just like us now, they have 2 strands of power. That was a long time ago. I wanted to go deeper and take a look. After walking for 2 days, I encountered one at night. There was a trace of fear on the City Lord's face. That night, I encountered a lawbreaker beast with 2 strands of strength. I almost lost my life. After a fierce battle, I used up all of my extreme energy to escape. After that, I never went into the depths again. The City Lord looked at Zichun. Since there are lawbreaker beasts with 2 strands of extreme power in the depths, there must be people like us. So, after seeing you break through, I plan to go deeper again. I originally planned to go back and discuss it with you, but I didn't expect to meet you here. Don't you need to guard this place? Zichun asked, puzzled. Like everyone else, I'm just a passerby. I don't have the right to guard this place, the City Lord said. I want to go deeper and take a look. I want to know what this place is. And why did we come here? This was the question Zichun had been searching for. After hearing the City Lord's words, Zichun hesitated. It wasn't that he didn't want to go deeper, but that he didn't trust the City Lord. After all, they hadn't interacted before. If they encountered trouble together, it was hard to say whether it would be helpful or dangerous. If 2 people travel together, the chances of survival will be higher. As if seeing Zichun's hesitation, the City Lord said, if there's a crisis that we can't resolve, we'll rely on our own abilities to escape. Whether or not we can survive will depend on our own luck. Now that the City Lord had said this, Zichun had no reason to refuse. He nodded his head and agreed. However, he didn't immediately go deeper. Before that, he needed to obtain enough extreme energy. This represented life. Once danger approached, this energy would be the best way to extend one's life. Zichun stayed here and collected for 3 nights. When he had enough extreme energy, he returned to the city. That day, he left with the City Lord and went deeper. Chapter 4996. Zichun followed Miao Pengyun into the depths of the forest. During the day, Miao Pengyun told Zichun some of the things he knew. In this place, there was usually no danger during the day. At night, the 2 lit bonfires. Just like in the outer perimeter, there were a total of 7 bonfires. Zichun sat cross-legged and quietly cultivated. Miao Pengyun said that this was his first night on guard duty. In any case, he didn't dare to sleep in this place. The 2 of them were surrounded by 2 strands of extreme energy. At the same time, they also held extreme energy in their hands. Traveling during the day would consume energy. Even sitting here at night would consume energy. The difference was that Zichun's eyes were closed while Miao Pengyun's were open. He carefully looked around and didn't have Zichen's calmness. Until dawn, no law-breaking beast appeared. The two of them continued to move forward during the day. What's in the depths? The atmosphere was silent as they moved forward. Zichun took the initiative to speak. Miao Pengyun shook his head. I'm not sure. Last time, we walked for 3 days and came back when we encountered danger. But I believe that there must be others inside. Zichun looked around. This was a desert. There were very few plants on the ground. It was difficult to find something to start a fire. That night, there were only 3 bonfires. When it was Zichen's turn to keep watch, he opened his eyes and looked ahead. Occasionally, he would turn his head and look around. 2 of the bonfires were placed 5 zhang away. The remaining one was beside him. Miao Pengfei couldn't sleep. He talked to Zichen for a while and took out energy to recover. Zichen looked around occasionally. Sometimes, he would use his immortal spiritual eye to look into the distance. That night, it was still safe. Zichun was a little disappointed that they didn't encounter any law-breaking beast. Fortunately, he was well prepared and had enough extreme energy. He didn't have to worry about running out in a short time. On the 3rd night, there was only 1 bonfire left. It was Miao Pengfei's turn to keep watch. At night, there was a sudden shout. When Zichun opened his eyes, he saw 2 law-breaking beasts. Miao Pengfei stepped forward and pushed one of them back. Then, he clenched the wooden blade in his left hand and slashed at the other. This was the first time that Zichun saw the City Lord fight. He also noticed that these 2 were ordinary law-breaking beasts, so he didn't help. The 2 law-breaking beasts besieged the City Lord, but still didn't gain the upper hand. After the wooden blade slashed its body, one of them fell. Then, the City Lord killed the second one. Compared to Ziz's the bone, the wooden blade, 2 law-breaking, only 8 of their powers, 8, left. Their numbers were fewer in number. He was. The bone cudgel appeared in his hand in an instant and smashed forward. This happened to be behind the City Lord. The City Lord's expression changed suddenly, but before he could turn around, he heard a bang. When he turned around, he saw a law-breaking beast rolling into the distance. The law-breaking beast that landed on the ground lit up with 2 rays of light. Its body rolled a few times, but it didn't suffer much damage. Watch out! Miao Pengfei exclaimed. The law-breaking beast with 2 rays of power pounced at Zichun. Zichun stood where he was, raised the bone stick in his hand, and smashed it at the beast's head. At this moment, the law-breaking beast suddenly opened its mouth, and a large flame appeared from its mouth, engulfing Zichen's body. When the flame came, Zichen blocked it with the bone stick in his hand and immediately retreated. A huge force fell on the bone stick. It was the law-breaking beast's mouth, biting it. Compared to the law-breaking beasts with 1 ray of power, the 2 rays of power were more ferocious and didn't seem to be afraid of the bone stick's aura. Zichun quickly retreated. At this moment, a fierce aura appeared beside him. The wooden saber emitted a bright light and slashed at the law-breaking beast. Puff! A bloody wound appeared on the back of the law-breaking beast, and blood immediately flowed out from the wound. The law-breaking beast let go of its mouth and fell to the ground. Zichun, are you okay? Miao Pengfei shouted worriedly. I'm fine. Zichen's voice sounded. The burning flames around him were extinguishing, and at the same time, there was a ray of extreme energy in his left hand that was being quickly refined. Crack! Zichun heard the sound of something breaking. When he looked up, he saw that the law-breaking beast had bitten the wooden saber in half. Miao Pengfei also took this opportunity to hit the law-breaking beast's head with his palm. With a loud bang, the law-breaking beast flew backward. Its body rolled several times on the ground, but it wasn't hurt. Miao Pengfei quickly retreated, fear in his eyes. He used the law-breaking technique, but he still couldn't kill his opponent. We can only work together, Miao Pengfei said in a low voice. It's too strong. The flames from before were equivalent to the law-breaking technique. In fact, Miao Pengfei was very surprised because Zichun didn't suffer any obvious injuries after being hit. Zichen's expression also became more serious. This was indeed a problem, but it wasn't to the point where it couldn't be solved. Holding the bone staff in his hand, Zichun walked forward. He urged the two powers with all his strength. He operated his own cultivation method, not caring if it was useful or not. Zichun quickly moved forward, and the law-breaking beast leaped up. Swoosh! Zichun's figure suddenly flashed. The moment he was about to touch the opponent, he dodged. At the same time, the bone staff smashed down. Boom! It directly hit the opponent's head. The flames spewed out by the law-breaking beast immediately spread forward, but it didn't hurt Zichun, who dodged. The law-breaking beast was sent flying, and the flames it spewed out also changed direction in the air. Zichun quickly followed. While avoiding the flames, he also smashed down with the second staff. Boom! There was another violent explosion, mixed with the sound of bones breaking. After the law-breaking beast smashed to the ground, blood kept flowing out of its 7 orifices. As soon as the blood left its body, it turned into light and disappeared. Zichun stepped forward, ready to smash down with the third staff. At this moment, a vortex appeared and enveloped the law-breaking beast's body. When the vortex disappeared, 9 rays of extremely bright energy were left in its place. Miao Pengfei stood in the distance and was stunned. Isn't this combat power too strong? At the same time, he looked at Zichun's bone staff. The reason why it could be so effective was also because of the bone staff. There was no more danger that night. Next, the two of them traveled during the day and stopped at night. It took another 3 days to walk out of the Gobi Desert. At night, they encountered 2 law-breaking beasts, one of which had 2 powers. Perhaps it was due to his experience, but this time, Zichun had a much easier time dealing with it. 2 days later, after walking out of the Gobi Desert, they saw vegetation that they hadn't seen in a long time. The bonfire at night also burned brighter. After another 3 days, the two of them saw rows of buildings. Chapter 4997. Miao Pengfei heaved a sigh of relief when he saw rows of buildings and other people. This proved that his guess was right, and he cheered excitedly. This was where they should be. Some people heard the cheers and looked over. What are you shouting for? Haven't you seen people before? Someone immediately rebuked angrily. Zichun and Miao Pengfei walked forward. Both of them were in a good mood. Along the way, Zichun looked around and realized that there were many buildings here. There were many more than Miao Pengfei's Broken Law City. The scale was probably dozens of times larger. The person who scolded them was a middle-aged man. He held a whip in his hand and looked at them with disdain. Zichun's understanding of this place was limited to wooden weapons. A strange weapon like a whip should not be here. Around his body, there were also 2 forces. I thought we had 2 cannon fodders. I didn't expect them to be 2 forces. The man sneered and said, Then you're qualified to be warriors. You don't have to mine. Join the team tomorrow and go hunting. Where's this place? Miao Pengfei walked closer and asked curiously, Where's this place? The man sneered and said, A place where people are eaten. Where's this place? Miao Pengfei asked again. Slap. The man lashed the whip in his hand at Miao Pengfei's face impatiently. You talk too much. Just do what I tell you to do. Why are you so talkative? Zichun had been watching the man, so he pulled Miao Pengfei away the moment the man attacked. The whip cracked in the air, and the man's face turned cold. You dare to dodge? After that, the man waved the long whip in his hand and lashed at the two of them. Zichun and Miao Pengfei retreated. This was an unknown place, and they did not want to cause trouble. But the middle-aged man saw this and became even more aggressive. Dodge? Let's see how long you can dodge. Many people were watching from afar as the fight broke out. During this time, Zichun's gaze swept over the crowd. There were many people with 1 Dao force and a few with 2 Dao force. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and surround them. The middle-aged man flew into a rage and shouted angrily at the people who were fighting on both sides. Immediately, some people came forward, their eyes fierce. We are not here to fight. Miao Pengfei explained loudly. When we first came here, we just wanted to know what this place was. When I catch you and cut off your limbs, I will naturally tell you. The middle-aged man said coldly. The others were approaching. Once they surrounded him, it would be a huge problem. Zichun, who was retreating, suddenly stopped. He immediately reached out and caught the whip in his hand. He felt a piercing pain. There were actually some barbs on the whip. Even so, Zichun still held on tightly. After the long whip was pulled taut, he suddenly exerted force. The opponent did not expect Zichun to have such a move, and his body was sent flying in an instant. Zichun's figure flashed, and he quickly closed in. His palm landed on the other party's head. Once he used the art of breaking, the other party would most likely be torn to pieces in an instant. Zichun did not kill. Instead, he pressed down on the other party's head. The long whip in his other hand immediately wrapped around the other party's body. When the people around saw this, they were stunned. The last part of the whip in Zichun's hand directly strangled the other party's neck. He shouted to the two sides, "Who dares to come here?" Everyone was shocked. Clearly, they did not expect the other party to be so nimble. Ronald's combat strength was considered to be at the forefront of the second strength state. Otherwise, he would not have been a small steward here. However, he was subdued in just one move. Zichun gradually exerted force. The barbs on the long whip had already pierced into the other party's neck. Ronald's life force began to dissipate. "Disperse them." Zichun's eyes turned cold. "Disperse. Disperse quickly." Ronald hurriedly waved his hand, dispersing the crowd. "Next, I will ask you a question, and you will answer it." Zichun looked around. Miao Pengfei was standing behind Zichun, guarding against the other two sides. At this point, there was nothing more to say. Zichun asked, "Where's this place?" "The fenced area, also known as the mining area." Ronald immediately replied. He felt a strong sense of danger from Zichun. Now that he was restrained by the other party, he did not dare to resist. "What is in the mining area? What is it for?" "There are crystal ores. After collecting them, they will be sent to Shatter Lost City. Naturally, there will be other people who will take care of them." "Where is Shatter Lost City?" "It's deep inside." Zichun's face turned cold. "What else do you know? Tell me." The third strength and fourth strength existences all live in Shatter Lost City. The core area of Shatter Lost City is occupied by the Lawbreakers. "I heard that the crystal ores we obtained were all given to the Lawbreakers." Ronald told him some of the things he knew. "What are the Lawbreakers?" "They are a very unique existence. Like the Lawbreakers, they can survive here without activating their power." "There are such existences?" Zichun's expression changed. He thought of himself. Even if he did not use the extreme energy, he could still survive on his own. However, he could not do the same as the Lawbreakers, who could survive without using the extreme energy. He originally thought that he was very unique, but now it seemed that there were even more unique existences here. "Let him go." At this moment, a voice came from behind. The crowd dispersed and a man walked out. The man looked at Zichun and said, "What do you want to know?" "I will tell you. Let go of Ronald first." When Zichun saw the man clearly, his expression couldn't help but change. This man actually possessed 3 types of power. He let go of Ronald and took a few steps back. Ronald began to cough. His face was very pale. He rushed to the man and said, "Boss, he actually..." The man waved his hand and said, "You handle other things. I will take these 2 away." Ronald turned around and glared fiercely at Zichun. "Brat, consider yourself lucky. However, you better pray in your heart that you don't fall into my hands in the future. Otherwise, I will tear you apart." Facing Ronald's threat, Zichun was not afraid at all. He replied indifferently, "You better keep praying that you don't meet me alone, because I hold grudges more than you do." Ronald was furious. He wanted to say something but was interrupted by the man's cold snort. "Just you wait." He took a long whip and turned around. At the same time, he shouted to the people around him, "What the F***CK are you looking at? Hurry up and go mining." Everyone immediately dispersed. Don't mind him. Ronald is actually a good person. It's just that he has been in contact with the first strength for too long, so it's inevitable that he has some temper. The man said, "My name is Gavin. How should I address the 2 of you?" "Zichun, Miao Pengfei." The 2 of them introduced themselves. Zichun asked, "We just came from outside. What is this place?" Chapter 4998. The place where Zichun used to live was also called Pofa City. and Miao Pengfei was the mayor there. The two places were obviously not the same and could not be mentioned in the same breath. Gavin pointed into the distance and said, "Look, that's Pofa City." The two of them turned around and saw a majestic city. Looking from afar, it looked like an ancient beast was crawling on the ground. Zichun estimated that they were very far away from the city, but he could still see the tall city walls. He could not believe what he saw when he got closer. Looking at the two shocked expressions, Gavin smiled and said, "When I first came here, I was like you, but I got used to it after seeing more. No matter how shocking that place is, it has nothing to do with you, because if there are no accidents, you will never be able to enter that place." "Why?" Miao Pengfei asked in confusion. "Because the threshold is too high. Ordinary people can't enter at all." Gavin walked forward. Zichun and Miao Pengfei followed behind him. Zichun asked, "Even Sir can't enter?" Gavin said, "Yes, but it's better to live here than to live there." "Boudica, two people came to join your team. As for what to pay attention to, you tell them." Gavin suddenly waved his hand in the distance. A second strength state cultivator immediately walked over. After he stepped forward, he glanced at the two of them and said indifferently, "Come with me." The two followed. Gavin stared at the backs of the three men until they completely disappeared. "Boss, why didn't you just kill them?" Ronald walked over from behind. His face was pale and his eyes were cold. Gavin glanced at him and said, "You're getting more and more unruly recently. It's fine if you don't show mercy to a first strength state cultivator, but they're second strength state cultivators too. How can you bully them like that?" Ronald said with grievance, "Boss, when did I bully them? They bullied me and attacked me as soon as they arrived." Gavin said indifferently, "Do you think two newcomers who know nothing about this place will attack as soon as they arrive?" Ronald fell silent when he heard that. "Only this time. Don't do it again."
Yes.
Ronald nodded and asked again, "So we're just going to let it go this time?" "Forget it. How can that do?" A cold light flashed in Kevin's eyes. "Go and tell Boudica that there is a conflict between the two sides." "All right, I'll go now." Ronald smiled and said, "That guy Boudica doesn't have any other abilities, but his ability to trick people is superb." Boudica led the two of them into the distance. As he walked, he said, "There are no big rules here. Just remember three things." Zichun and Miao Pengfei listened quietly. "First, be obedient. The second is to be obedient. The third is to remember the first and second points." Boudica glanced at the two of them and said, "Being obedient will allow you to live longer. Being disobedient will only make you die faster. Do you understand?" The two nodded. A cold light flashed in Boudica's eyes as he raised his voice. "I'm asking you, do you understand?" "Understood." Zichun and Miao Pengfei immediately replied, louder, "Understood." Boudica nodded in satisfaction. "Here, the first strength realm is cannon fodder. If there is any movement, they will die first. The second strength realm is considered high-level cannon fodder. They live in the periphery and guard the city for the big shots. Once the beast tide erupts, the high-level cannon fodder will be sent to their deaths." Boudica pointed behind him. "If you want to live a good life, go to that city. However, most people can't enter." "Sir, what do we need to do now?" Zichun asked. "That will be your kennel. You will stay here for the time being." Boudica glanced at Zichun and said, "As for the mission, it's nothing more than guarding the mine, or escorting other cannon fodder to the mine, or transporting crystals. In any case, it's all about guarding." Boudica waved his hand impatiently and said, "Every time you go out on a mission, if you survive, each person will be paid 2 strands of strength a day. If you die, it's nothing. All right, the two of you can scram now." With that, Boudica left without looking back. During this time, he was cursing, but no one knew who he was cursing. Zichun and Miao Pengfei glanced at each other. The excitement they had when they saw other people was long gone. There were other people passing by, but all of them were in a hurry. There was no smile on their faces. "Since we're here, let's take it easy. Let's see what's going on here." Zichun turned and walked towards the room. The buildings here were not as good as Shatter FA City. After entering the room, there were several air leaks. Miao Pengfei's room was not much better. "Boudica." A voice called out to Boudica. This made him, who was already cursing, turn his head angrily. There were not many people who dared to call him by his name. "It's you." Looking at Ronald, the anger on Boudica's face faded a little. Ronald stepped forward and took out 2 strands of strength and gave it to Boudica. "What do you mean?" Boudica did not accept it, but looked at him. "Those 2 guys just now, I have a conflict with them," Ronald said. "What does your conflict have to do with me?" Boudica was disdainful. "Boss told me to come and tell you," Ronald said. "You should have a way, right?" "It's not easy." Boudica shook his head and looked troubled. "They're new here. They obviously won't offend anyone. With so many people watching, how can I?" Ronald took out 2 more strands of strength, a total of 4. "Boss specifically told me to find you. Don't be so humble. It's not like we don't know what you're capable of." "All right." Boudica smiled and put away the 4 strands of strength. "The edge mine needs a group of people to guard it. I think these 2 are very suitable." "Thank you very much." Ronald smiled. That was the most dangerous mine. Other than the Shatter FA beast, there were even more terrifying vanishing shadow beasts. Boudica put away his strength and immediately returned. He kicked open the door of the 2's room and shouted, "Get out, there's a new mission." The 2 immediately walked out. "You 2 follow the others to the edge mine. Stay there for a few days until the big shots come." When Zichun and Miao Pengfei walked out, they saw the group of more than 10 people already waiting there. After seeing the 2 of them arrive, many people looked at them strangely. "All right, let's go. Don't die." Boudica waved his hand as if he was shooing away flies. The group of 16 people set off. One of them had been there before, so he was in charge of leading the way. Zichun and Miao Pengfei followed in the group. The 2 of them felt helpless. They had come here, but they had to go on a mission before even seeing their reward. If they did not have energy left, they would not be able to last a few days in that place. It was dark, and they could not see their own fingers. Everyone decided to stop and rest. Everyone started to get busy. Some started a fire, some collected firewood. Suddenly, Zichun saw a black shadow appear from behind a person. The shadow reached out and grabbed the person's neck. Chapter 49-99. Zichun stood there in a daze, his eyes staring straight ahead. Everyone else was moving, but he was the only one standing there. This scene was too strange. The black shadow had already stretched out its hands and grabbed that person's neck, but that person did not react at all. He was even joking. "Zichun, what's wrong with you?" Miao Pengfei saw that Zichun was not moving, so he pushed him lightly. Buzz. At this moment, a wave of energy appeared in front of them. That person's entire body was crystallized like a piece of crystal, emitting a strong light. The next moment, the light dissipated, turning into thousands of light spots. That person also disappeared. Only then did the others come to their senses and immediately guarded their surroundings. The annihilating shadow beast. It must be the annihilating shadow beast. There were even people shouting in panic, waving their weapons around in panic. They were extremely terrified. "Extinguish all the flames quickly." The person who was leading the way shouted at the crowd. Everyone was already in a panic. Hearing this, they extinguished the flames one after another, and the surroundings became dark again. The black shadow from before also disappeared. It did not leave, but disappeared. It was like a ghost that appeared out of thin air and then disappeared into thin air. Zichun saw the entire process of that person's death. The black shadow went forward, grabbed his neck, and sucked on his body. The next moment, a shadow flew out and was swallowed by the black shadow. That shadow seemed to be a soul. After that, his body crystallized and disappeared between heaven and earth. Everyone else was in a panic, but Zichun was still standing there in a daze. Miao Pengfei went forward and asked softly, "Did you see something?" Zichun shook his head slowly. The surroundings were very quiet. Everyone would hear their conversation. In order to avoid unnecessary panic, he decided not to say anything. "What's the annihilating shadow beast?" Zichun suddenly asked. "Shut up. Are you trying to get us killed?" The guide immediately shouted at Zichun. The others also stared at Zichun fiercely. At this moment, with the help of the light on everyone's bodies, Zichun realized that everyone was very frightened. Only he and Miao Pengfei were more confused. Unfortunately, no one was kind enough to explain the situation to them. Zichen looked around again. He didn't dare to use his immortal spiritual eye and only used his eyes to look around. In fact, he did not use his immortal spiritual eye earlier, but he was still able to see that shadow. The surroundings were very quiet. Even the sound of the wind could not be heard. It was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Almost everyone present could hear their own heartbeats. Everyone was nervous, and Zichen's expression became serious. Suddenly, Zichen moved. As soon as he moved, many people used their sharp gazes to warn him not to act recklessly. Ignoring everyone's warning looks, Zichen stepped forward and lit a branch, then threw it into the distance. The branch landed a few hundred feet away. As the light of the fire shone, law-breaking beasts appeared one after another. Seeing the flames, the law-breaking beasts were slightly startled and scattered. The warning looks immediately turned into fear. The leader shouted again, "Light the fire!" Everyone immediately ignited their flames. Compared to the strange existence of the vanquishing shadow beast, the threat of the spell-breaking beast was not small either. Moreover, the law-breaking beasts were already in front of them. Naturally, they had to deal with them first. The flames immediately lit up and surrounded everyone. Everyone saw the law-breaking beasts outside. There were more than 20 of them. However, they still did not know the cultivation level of these law-breaking beasts. Before the battle, no one could tell their cultivation level. The flames rose, forming a huge ring of fire. The law-breaking beasts stood outside the ring of fire, while everyone stayed in the ring of fire. The two sides looked at each other through the flames. The law-breaking beasts' gazes were cold and emotionless. The flames could not stop them. They did not attack immediately because there were many people here. Miao Pengfei looked at Zichen with a questioning look. If Zichen was willing to take out the bone rod, then the trouble here would be nothing. With Zichen's combat strength, he would be able to kill all these law-breaking beasts in a short time. However, if Zichen was hiding his strength, everyone would be in trouble. "We can't go on like this. Who wants to go out and scout?" The leader shouted. There were more than 20 law-breaking beasts outside the flames. Who would dare to go out at this time? Not only did everyone not go out, but they all took a step back. The leader was anxious. If we don't test their strength, we will be exhausted to death. If they are only in the first force realm, we can easily kill them. As he spoke, he took out a stream of energy and started to refine it. In this place, one had to be at full strength at all times. Still, no one moved. It was obvious that going out would be suicide. "You two newcomers, go and take a look." The eyes of the guide were fixed on Zichen and Miao Pengfei. The others also looked at the two of them. Their eyes became extremely cold. Obviously, if the two of them refused, these people would attack at this time. Miao Pengfei's expression became extremely ugly. Obviously, the two of them were being targeted. Relatively speaking, Zichen could understand. After all, when he won a law-breaking city last time, Tommy and the others had plotted against him. "I'll go," Zichen said. He could not fight with these people now. He turned around, picked up the wooden blade of the person who had just died, and walked out. This action was obviously to hide his strength. Miao Pengfei looked at Zichen's back. After hesitating, he followed him out. The others watched this scene coldly. The two of them were tactful. Otherwise, they would have died in the flames. Zichen walked out, his eyes fixed on the law-breaking beasts in front of him. He did not use his immortal spiritual eye. He could see them clearly with the help of the flames. In fact, he was a little nervous. If these were all in the second force realm, he could only use the bone staff. Whoosh! Light shone around him. Zichen was the first to move. Facing these law-breaking beasts, he chose to take the initiative. When he moved, the law-breaking beasts moved as well. Some retreated, and some charged at Zichen. The wooden blade in Zichen's hand flashed. With a flash of brilliance, a law-breaching beast was killed. He did not retreat. Instead, he moved forward and attacked the second law-breaking beast. Miao Pengfei followed behind Zichen, waiting to attack. Pft, pft. Another 2 slashes. Zichen killed 3 law-breaking beasts. Miao Pengfei, who was behind him, also killed one. Seeing this, everyone was relieved. They had been making a fuss. It seemed that these law-breaking beasts were all in the first force realm. After the fourth law-breaking beast was killed by Zichun, the other law-breaking beast retreated. Rays of light appeared, and more than a dozen extreme energies appeared on the ground. Zichun looked around. After making sure that the law-breaking beasts had all fled, he bent down and picked up the energies. Seeing this, the other's eyes were burning. Zichun picked up the energies and turned back. Chapter 5000. Under the illumination of the bonfire, Zichun could not see what the black shadow looked like. He could only see a shadow appear behind a person. As expected, the other party did not react at all. He did not sense the danger at all. After his soul power was absorbed, his body crystallized and disappeared. Everyone was terrified. The law-breaking beast had just left, and now the vanishing shadow beast was here. "Put out the flames!" the guide shouted again. The guide shouted again. Everyone immediately scattered and put out the flames in a flurry. Without the flames, there was no shadow. Could it be that the vanishing shadow beast used the shadow behind it to attack? Zichun guessed in his heart. He walked back with Miao Pengfei by his side. At this moment, he had decided that no matter what happened, he would follow Zichun, because these people were not very reliable. "What should we do?" Miao Pengfei asked softly. Actually, Zichun had kept charging forward because he wanted to escape. However, he did not expect those law-breaking beasts to be at the first force realm. They had run away before he could. "Let's wait and see." Everyone stood together, releasing the light of energy around them. They formed a circle with their backs facing each other. Everyone held a weapon in their right hand and replenished their energy in their left. For the entire night, no one dared to rest or be careless. Zichun looked ahead, his gaze moving. It was very dark all around. Without using his immortal spiritual eye, he could not see anything. That night, everyone was on tenterhooks. Time seemed to pass very slowly. Fortunately, there was no danger until dawn. When the sky was completely bright, everyone let out a sigh of relief. It was as if they had gone through a life and death battle. Everyone sat down dispiritedly, almost collapsing. "If you don't want to die tonight, you'd better hurry." The guide's voice was cold as he walked forward first. After hesitating, the others followed. "Excuse me, what exactly is a vanishing shadow beast?" After walking for a while, Zichun finally asked the question in his heart. Everyone looked at him, but no one explained for him. Zichun was helpless. Just then, the guide suddenly turned around and said, "There is a force. Let me tell you." Zichun was slightly taken aback as he looked at the other party. A hint of displeasure appeared on the other party's face. "What? Do you think it's too little? Add another one?" Zichun could tell that the man wasn't joking and didn't want to cause too much trouble, so he took out a beam of extreme energy and gave it to the man. It's a type of existence that relies on shadows to launch attacks. No one can see them, but once you're entangled by them, you'll almost certainly die, the guide explained after putting away the energy. "No one can see it?" Zichun asked again. The guide smiled and said, "This is the second question." He reached his hand out and gestured for Zichun to use the second power. Zichun shook his head, indicating that he didn't want to listen. The others pursed their lips, their expressions full of disdain. The guide didn't explain anything further. As they walked forward, they chatted and laughed. Zichun and Miao Pengfei were obviously excluded. Listening to their conversation, it would take about 5 days to walk from here to the borderland. Last night, they'd already lost 2 people. At this rate, there probably wouldn't be many people left by the time they reached the borderland. A day passed, and no one gave them any payment. They probably only got it when they reached the borderland, so they'd have to pay for it themselves. At night, they continued to gather together. Although lighting a fire was useless, they still picked up some firewood in case they needed it. "You two, go over there and gather." At this moment, a burly man walked over and kicked Miao Pengfei. "What did you say?" Miao Pengfei stood up. "I said, you two, get out of here." At this moment, there were piles of firewood all around them, but they hadn't been lit yet. Miao Pengfei was furious. They'd already been used as cannon fodder last night, and now they were going to be used as bait again. But just as he was about to refuse, The others surrounded him and stared coldly at him. Obviously, the remaining 12 people formed a team and excluded the 2 of them. They were isolated. It's your first time here, so it's best if you can train alone. Of course, if an accident happens, we'll help you in time. The guide walked over. After all, we're all in the same boat, so we should take care of each other. Miao Pengfei wanted to argue, but Zichen suddenly said, "Let's go." As he left, he took some of the firewood with him. Seeing this, Miao Pengfei also took some and left. The others didn't say anything. After all, their flames wouldn't be lit under normal circumstances. The crowd was divided into 2 teams, one with 12 people, the other with only 2 people. Whether it was the vanishing shadow beast or the lawbreaker beast, as long as they were here, they should know which to choose. Zichen and Miao Pengfei walked to the side and started to arrange the firewood. Miao Pengfei said worriedly, "We're being targeted. What should we do now?" "Let's wait and see. If it doesn't work out, we'll leave." Zichen's biggest advantage was that he could see the vanishing shadow beast. At the same time, it was also the main reason why Miao Pengfei was willing to follow Zichen and trust Zichen. And until now, Zichen hadn't revealed his bone rod. Clearly, he was confident. Zichen didn't hesitate and lit the fire. This made the 12 people nearby sigh in relief. This idiot's actions would only make them safer. Night fell. There was no Xingqian in the sky, nor was there a moon. It was pitch black. Beside the bonfire, Zichen turned and looked in the direction of the 12 people. They were surrounded by light, so he could see them. Noticing that Zichen was looking in their direction, someone immediately shouted, "Hey, don't look in our direction." Miao Pengfei was uneasy. He whispered, "Zichen, why don't you come and look at me?" Knowing that the vanishing shadow beast relied on shadows to attack, he didn't want to light the bonfire. It was Zichen who insisted. Now that Zichen was looking in the distance, Miao Pengfei was unsure. "What's the point of looking at you?" Zichen said. "Watching you die." He turned his head and glanced behind him. Just then, his expression changed. Seeing Zichen's expression change, Miao Pengfei's expression changed. There was fear in his eyes. "Zichen, don't scare me." Zichen ignored Miao Pengfei. Instead, he slowly turned around. Just outside the fire, a black figure stood. The 2 of them were probably looking at each other. But at such a close distance, he still couldn't see what the other person looked like. Miao Pengfei suddenly screamed. Zichen glanced at him and said, "What are you yelling about?" His shout also gave the others a big fright, and they all stood up one after another. "Is there something behind me?" Miao Pengfei asked. "If there was, you'd be dead," Zichen said unhappily. Hearing this, Miao Pengfei heaved a sigh of relief. He didn't see that Zichen's forehead was covered in cold sweat. Chapter 5001. Zichen stood up and stared at the black shadow in front of him. More and more cold sweat appeared on Miao Pengfei's face. Zichen gripped the long saber in his hand tightly and dashed forward in an instant. A strong wind blew from the side like a chilly wind, causing Miao Pengfei to shiver uncontrollably. Swoosh! Zichen slashed forward with the wooden saber in the field. A golden light streaked across the air and disappeared in a flash. After the slash, Zichen's expression changed because the black shadow was still there. The 2 seemed to be in different time and space. Zichen couldn't hurt him at all. "Zichen, what are you doing?" Miao Pengfei turned around and looked at Zichen. "There was nothing here." Zichen said, "I'm practicing my saber technique. I haven't tried it for a long time." As he spoke, Zichen struck out with his saber again and again. Every strike was aimed forward. In the eyes of the crowd, Zichen was just attacking the air and looked very silly. But in front of Zichen, the black shadow stood there and looked at him indifferently. During this period, the long saber he slashed would pass by the black shadow and couldn't hurt him at all. He slashed more than a dozen times in a row. "Idiot, do you have energy that you don't know where to use? It's late. Don't play any tricks. Are you trying to dance like a god? Quickly stop and just stand there." The crowd in the distance also began to shout loudly. In fact, it was reasonable to say that Zichen's actions would attract more attention and the crowd would be safer. It was just that this kind of crazy saber attack was like a sudden onset of illness. Everyone felt apprehensive. Zichun put away the wooden saber and retreated because the black shadow disappeared. It disappeared into thin air. He turned around again and looked at those people. "Get over there. If you dare to turn around again, I'll kill you." This is AF * King Lunatic. I don't know where he came from. First, he danced, and now he's going crazy. Why are you looking at us? Zichen's stare made everyone's hair stand on end, and all of them began to curse loudly. Zichun retracted his gaze and looked at Miao Pengfei. Miao Pengfei was not afraid. Instead, he felt more at ease. He guessed that Zichun must have seen something, and it was definitely not as simple as just practicing his saber. No one would practice their swordsmanship at night, especially at this time. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream came from afar. A person was immediately petrified, his body turning into specks of light and disappearing. "It's the vanishing shadow beast." Someone cried out in alarm. Everyone immediately scattered in fear. "Quickly put out the fire. Be put out by the flames." The guide shouted at Zichun. Zichun ignored him and continued to look into the distance. The black shadow had already disappeared. "Damn it! I told you to extinguish the flames. Didn't you hear me?" The guide was furious. "This flame is very far away from you," Zichun said calmly. "It won't affect you. You're spouting nonsense. It didn't affect us, so how did one die? That's because you made a mistake in your judgment. The vanishing shadow beast may not need the help of shadows to attack." As soon as Zichun finished speaking, those people's expressions changed. They were even more frightened. "Don't listen to his nonsense," the guide immediately said. "How long has he been here? He doesn't even know what the vanishing shadow beast is. How can you take his words seriously?" Zichun suddenly turned his head and looked into the distance. There were spell-breaking beasts there. Only 2 of them were moving forward and appeared within the range of the bonfire. 2 spell-breaking beasts? Those people stopped shouting. They had all seen the spell-breaking beasts. Everything was finally on the right track. The flames attracted everyone's attention. The danger came to the 2 of them first. Zichun's expression became serious. His expression was even more serious than the dozens of spell-breaking beasts they'd encountered last night, because these 2 were very likely to be in the second force realm. "What should we do?" Miao Pengfei looked at Zichun and gave him a pleading look. "Let's wait and see." Zichun held the wooden saber and stared at the 2 approaching spell-breaking beasts. He said, "If they enter the range of the flames, we'll attack." Miao Pengfei nodded. He was a little nervous. Zichun was now considering how to kill them. If he could avoid using the bone staff, he would try his best not to. This thing was too rare. If he used it now, the number of enemies might increase instantly. Then he could only use the spell-breaking art. Although it was very energy-consuming, it would not expose anything. The others in the distance were silent. They were almost holding their breaths. At this moment, they were in the dark, while Zichun was in the light. No matter how the spell-breaking beasts looked, they would look for Zichun first. The spell-breaking beasts went outside the bonfire and did not attack. Zichun and Miao Pengfei looked at the spell-breaking beasts warily. The 2 sides were in a stalemate. It seemed that they were competing to see who was more patient. The 11 people were obviously the most patient. They did not rush. If the 2 sides could face each other until dawn, it would be a good thing for them. Because if the 2 of them did not die the next night, they could be cannon fodder again. Right at this moment, one of the lawbreaker beasts suddenly moved. With a leap, it swept past the flames and directly pounced towards Zichun. As it pounced, 2 rays of light lit up around its body. It was indeed in the 2 realms. Whoosh! In Zichun's right hand, the wooden saber slashed forward. Light also lit up on his left hand. The wooden saber collided with the spell-breaking beast's claws. A powerful shock wave shook the wooden saber in Zichun's hand. At the same time, he felt a powerful force fall on him. It was the spell-breaking beast's claws. "Destroy!" Zichun let out a low shout. His left hand lit up with a bright light. A strange power condensed in his palm, like several thin lines, fell on the spell-breaking beast's body. Bang! Zichun's body retreated. A large piece of flesh disappeared from his shoulder. In front of him, after the spell-breaking beast was attacked by the thin lines, Its body seemed to be cut by the rules and fell to the ground in several pieces. Whoosh! The moment it fell to the ground, its body disappeared, leaving behind 9 rays of extreme energy. Such a scene completely shocked the 11 people in the distance. They never thought that the other party's combat strength would be so terrifying. That was a 2-realm spell-breaking beast. It required several people to work together to deal with it. However, the other party killed it with only 1 move. At this moment, they truly understood the strength of Zichen's combat strength. They had actually used such an expert as cannon fodder. Perhaps it was because this move was too frightening, but outside the flames, the other law-breaking beast saw this and turned to run. Miao Pengfei was also stunned. He had never seen Zichen use the spell-breaking technique. This was also the first time. He did not expect it to be so lethal. Zichen threw away the half of the wooden saber in his hand, then went forward to pick up the energy on the ground. He left 1 ray to refine and recover his injuries. He put away the rest. He left the bonfire and walked toward the 11 people. Seeing this, everyone's expression changed greatly. Was he going to settle the score with them? Misunderstanding. Seeing this, the being immediately said. Zichen ignored him. He walked to the side of the disappeared being and picked up its wooden weapon. Chapter 5002. These 11 people were all looking at Zichen. During this time, no one dared to stop Zichen. The extreme energy was constantly healing his injuries. Zichen's injuries were not light after that head-on clash. However, he had also indirectly verified the destructive power of the extreme energy. It was another powerful battle force. Holding the wooden saber that he had picked up, he returned to the original campfire. Zichen immediately sat down cross-legged with the wooden saber beside him. Another beam of energy appeared in his right hand. He was refining 2 beams of energy at the same time, trying to recover quickly. In this place, as long as one did not die immediately, one could recover no matter how serious the injuries were. The campfire burned. This night, there were no more dangers. After seeing Zichen kill the 2-force realm spellbreaker beast with 1 palm, no one dared to make a ruckus. For a moment, the atmosphere was very quiet. The sky brightened, and the group continued on their way. This time, Miao Pengfei clearly felt that the way the crowd looked at them had clearly changed. "Little brother, how should I address you?" The person in charge of leading the way took the initiative to chat with Zichen today. Zichen glanced at him but did not speak. Every time, the person who pushed them out was the other person. Vaguely, this person seemed to be the leader. "Little brother, don't misunderstand. You've seen the situation here. It's really dangerous. We have to be careful. I feel that under such circumstances, it's better for everyone to stay together." This was clearly just an excuse. Zichen could not be bothered to argue with him. He asked directly, "What's going on with the Vanishing Shadow Beast?" The Vanishing Shadow Beast does indeed rely on shadows to attack. It's very scary. Usually, if you encounter it, you will die. Speaking of the Vanishing Shadow Beast, the person's eyes were still filled with fear. Could it be that the Vanishing Shadow Beast is immortal? No one can see it? Zichen asked again. This was what he wanted to know the most. Normal people cannot see the Vanishing Shadow Beast, unless... The person's expression became hesitant. Zichen's expression changed slightly. It seemed that there really was a special situation. However, he did not continue and waited for the person to continue. "Spellbreaker," the guide said. "It said that the Spellbreaker can see the Vanishing Shadow Beasts and can even kill them." This was the second time Zichen had heard the term Spellbreaker. What kind of existence is that? A very mysterious existence that doesn't need extreme energy to survive in this world. The guide said, "There has always been a rumor that they are the natives of this world. They were born to be compatible with this world and control the rules of this world." "Oh, right, they have perception," the guide said. "This is something normal people don't have." "Perception?" Zichen asked. "What is that?" "Just like the soul power we once had. We can sense all things." The guide thought about it and said, "The reason why they can see the annihilating shadow beast is probably because of their perception." Zichen could see the annihilating shadow beast, but he did not have any perception. He knew this very well. The reason why he wanted to know the answer to this question was because he wanted to discover some differences and speculate about his own situation at the same time. However, he didn't seem to have gained anything. Let's talk about the Bianfeng mineral vein. This was the place they were about to go. There was a strong sense of danger. It's a very remote mineral vein. The crystals produced there are of high quality, but the production rate is very low. After seeing how powerful Zichun was, the guide told him everything he knew. But the people inside don't want to give up on the mineral vein, so they often send people to guard there. Zichun did not understand and asked, "Why do they have to guard there? Can't they just stay there and not come back?" The guide glanced at Zichun and said, "Because once they go there, they probably won't be able to come back." Zichun's expression changed. If they couldn't come back, they would naturally die. Under normal circumstances, only those who offend those in charge will be sent to the Bianfeng mineral vein to fend for themselves. The guide glanced at Zichun. His meaning could not be more obvious. Zichun had just arrived here and had already fought with Ronald. Boudica had arranged for the two of them to come here probably because of Ronald. Perhaps there was also Gavin who had 3 powers. But it's not a dead end. The guide continued, if everyone can reach the place successfully and wait for a few days. Once the Lord Spellbreaker arrives, as long as the other party tells us to give up on the mineral vein, everyone can go back. Zichun looked at the guide. Have you been there many times? The guide held up 3 fingers. 3 times. Each time, I left with a large group. This was not a small number. During this time, Zichun learned the other party's name. Ogre. Ogre then told Zichun some secrets about this place. This time, he did not ask for extreme energy. Night came again. This was the 3rd night. Everyone gathered around and lit a bonfire. This time, they did not chase Zichun away. It seemed that everyone's luck had come. This night, no vanishing shadow beasts appeared. Instead, 2 waves of Spellbreaker beasts came, but they were killed by everyone. On the 4th night, the vanishing shadow beasts came. Everyone repeatedly extinguished the fire, but 2 people still died. They killed some more Spellbreaker beasts. Other than Zichun and Miao Pengfei, there were 9 people left in the group. These 9 people, including Ogre, were all on tenterhooks. Everyone finally arrived at the edge or vein. This was a towering mountain range. The area was very large. There were mountains everywhere, and there were some caves all around. At the foot of the mountain range, there were some buildings. There was no one inside. It was said that before they left, there were some people guarding here. Now, it seemed that they were all dead. According to Ogre, the guards would come first. After the place was stabilized, it would be time for the 1-Force Realm Cannon fodder to enter and collect the crystals. When collecting the crystals, it would be accompanied by danger, because some of the crystals also had some kind of strong killing intent. When everyone arrived, they immediately found some rooms and entered them. In these few days, everyone had consumed their own energy. Without the subsidies, they did not have much energy left. They would save as much as they could. Zichun, on the other hand, had gained a lot along the way and did not consume much energy. This mineral vein was so big that it gave Zichun a strong sense of oppression. Ogre told him that the crystals inside might contain some kind of great danger, but they might also contain great opportunities. For example, Ronald's whip was made of extraordinary material. It did not seem to be something from this world. It was found by someone in the crystals. After it appeared, it did not disappear. It was supposed to be sent to Spellbreaker City, but for some reason, it was left behind. Zichun was very surprised. He did not expect there to be something in the crystals. Ogre told Zichun that they should just stay here. After a few days, when the Spellbreakers came to investigate, everyone could leave. Staying in the rooms, as long as there was no fire, the chances of encountering vanishing shadow beasts were very small. As for Spellbreaker beasts, under normal circumstances, they would not attack these rooms. Zichun wanted to take a look at the mineral vein. Ogre warned him sternly that there was a great danger inside. Zichun finally gave up. Chapter 5003. 2 lawbreakers came this time, a man and a woman. Other than the 2 of them, Ronald and Gavin also followed them. A total of 4 people. When they arrived, they asked Ogre to call everyone out. Ronald's gaze swept across the crowd. When he saw Zichun and Miao Pengfei, surprise flashed across his face, but he didn't say anything. Ogre told them about the situation here, and the two lawbreakers looked at the dirty ogre with disdain. Sir, we've been here for so long, and we can't hold on any longer. After saying that, Ogre looked troubled. According to the rules, every day they went out, they would receive 2 strands of energy as a reward. After walking for a total of 5 days and staying here for a few days, each of them received more than 10 strands of energy. The lawbreakers obviously didn't care about this kind of thing. Ronald took out a lot of extreme energy and began to distribute it to everyone. When he came in front of Zichun, he looked at Zichun and said in a low voice, "You're lucky to not die on the way. I hope your luck will continue." "I will." Zichun took the energy. Ronald smiled coldly, then turned back and said, "Sir, this mine is very dangerous. Why don't we let him go in and explore?" Ronald pointed at Zichun. "His speed is good. It won't take long for him to go back and forth." The lawbreaker seemed to be a little moved. The edge mine was indeed a little strange. The woman said with disdain, "They're all dirty. Let's go take a look and then leave here. I feel uncomfortable every time we stay here. Looking at these dirty people, I'm about to vomit." The two lawbreakers, like the lawbreakers, didn't have any energy flowing around them, but it was said that the lowest realm of lawbreakers was the 4-strength state. At this moment, facing the woman's disdain, everyone was silent. Obviously, they didn't dare to refute. "Okay then." The Magi Breaker nodded, and the two of them walked towards a hole. Gavin and Ronald didn't go over, but waited here. Zichun turned and walked toward his residence. "Stop right there. Did I say you could leave?" A cold voice rang out. It was Ronald. He stared coldly at Zichun. Zichun turned around and glanced at him. "Who said you could leave?" Ronald quickly approached and pointed at Zichun's nose, cursing, "Who do you think you are? His lordship is waiting here. Is it your turn to go back?" As he spoke, he raised the long whip in his hand and was about to strike. When the others saw this, their expressions changed. They had all witnessed Zichun's strength with their own eyes. If Ronald were to make a move now and anger Zichun, he would definitely not be able to survive. "If you want to die, then do it." A cold killing intent flashed in Zichun's eyes. From August Gu, he knew that there were no rules in this place. Whoever was stronger had the final say. The reason why Ronald could command a portion of the people here was not because he was strong, but because he had a good relationship with Gavin. Jiawan, who was at the Three Forces realm, was undoubtedly the strongest person here. "What? You dare to threaten me?" Ronald glared at Zichun. However, he did not strike with his whip, perhaps because he sensed danger. Zichun's eyes were filled with cold killing intent. Miao Pengfei stood beside Zichun and looked at Zichun worriedly. He was well aware of Zichun's strength. It was too easy for him to kill Ronald, but there was still Gavin, who was at the Three Forces realm. "Ronald, what are you doing?" Gavin's voice rang out. He walked over with a face full of dissatisfaction. "Boss, this guy obviously doesn't know the rules. We haven't left yet. How is it his turn to leave?" Ronald said angrily. "If you haven't left, you can continue to stay here." Zichun glanced at Ronald with an indifferent expression and turned to leave. "How dare you speak to me with such an attitude? Do you want to die?" Ronald said coldly. Zichun turned to look at him. "You tried to harm me just now, but failed. That was the first time. Now, you're bothering me for no reason. This is the second time. If there's a third time, I don't mind killing you." Zichun looked at the whip in Ronald's hand and said, "Good. I'm very interested in that whip." This was a blatant threat. After saying that, Zichun turned and left. Seeing this, Miao Pengfei followed Zichun and left. Ronald was angry and wanted to say something, but he was stopped by Ogre. Gavin narrowed his eyes. There was a hint of coldness in his eyes. He did not like the other party's arrogance. "Let go of me. I'm going to kill him." Ronald was obviously still angry. "Sir, please calm down. If you go now, I'm afraid you won't be able to come back," Ogre said. "What do you mean?" Ronald said angrily. "You're saying I can't beat him?" The others did not say anything. They even watched happily as he went to find trouble with Zichun. Ronald had always been disliked. If it was not for Gavin's protection, he would have died many times. For a moment, many people blamed Ogre in their hearts for being a busybody. I'm not sure about Sir's combat strength, but that Zi-chan can kill a second force lawbreaker beast with one palm, Ogre said. What? Ronald's expression changed. Now that he saw a second force lawbreaker beast, it was a matter of whether he should run or not. He did not even dare to fight, let alone kill it. Even Gavin, who was beside him, had a flash of surprise in his eyes. He found it unbelievable. Is what you said true? Ogre nodded and said, Yes, I saw it with my own eyes. If you don't believe me, you can ask the others. They also saw it with their own eyes. Gavin looked at the crowd, and they nodded reluctantly. After Ronald heard the details, he was really frightened. The other party was obviously not joking. He looked at Gavin beside him and felt very lucky. Fortunately, the boss came along and made Zi-chan cautious. Otherwise, the other party might have killed him just now. I didn't expect such a strong person. Gavin's eyes flashed, but he did not say anything. When the others saw this, they all went back. If they stayed outside, their energy would be constantly depleted. It was much better to stay in the room. In the end, only Gavin, Ronald, and Ogre were left. Gavin said to Ogre, You've worked hard on this journey. When this is over, come back with us. Now, you should go back too. Thank you, sir. Ogre's eyes were filled with joy. Boss, what do we do now? After Ogre left, Ronald looked at Gavin. Gavin's eyes flashed with a murderous intent. Think of a way to kill him. Boss, you want to do it yourself? Ronald's eyes lit up. In his eyes, the three-force realm boss was omnipotent. Gavin shook his head and said, No, I'll kill him with a borrowed knife. Now that he knew how powerful Zi-chan was, all the more he couldn't let Zi-chan live. If a second force realm opponent had such combat strength, wouldn't he be even stronger once he advanced to the third force realm? When that time came, where would he find a place for himself? Suddenly, a powerful fluctuation came from the hole in front of them. The two lawbreakers who entered the hole not long ago ran out in a sorry state. The two of them were surrounded by light, and there were a total of 4 forces. Chapter 5004. The two lawbreakers escaped from the pit. When they entered earlier, they were still able to maintain their poise, but now they looked very pathetic. Gavin immediately stepped forward and asked, My lord, what's the situation? The man was still rational and shook his head. The woman who had been hooting earlier was now extremely frightened, and her face was as pale as a sheet of paper. Let's go back. It's too scary here. She was obviously frightened. She did not expect that just entering a pit would be so terrifying. The man who had been obedient to the woman before shook his head and said, The situation here is not clear yet. We can't leave yet. The woman said unhappily, Don't you know how dangerous it is in there? Do you want to die in there? My lord, I have someone here who is not afraid of danger. We can send him in to take a look. Gavin heard the woman's words and glanced at Ronald. Ronald instantly understood and immediately gave a suggestion. The man did not want to go any further and was a little moved. The woman beside him said, Then what are you waiting for? Hurry up and let him out. Ronald proudly shouted for Zi-chan in a very loud voice. However, there was no movement from Zi-chan's room. Ronald shouted a few more times, but there was still no response. Sensing the unfriendly gazes of the two lawbreakers, he immediately cursed, You damn guy. I told you to pretend you didn't hear me, didn't I? Do you still have any respect for my lord? He stepped forward and kicked open Zi-chan's door while cursing. Zi-chan, you. Before he could finish his words, a fist light appeared from the room and hit him squarely on the forehead. Bang! His body flew backward and landed more than 100 feet away. You're courting death. Gavin immediately shouted angrily when he saw this from afar. Oh, it's a person. I thought it was a law-breaking beast. Zi-chan glanced in Gavin's direction. Sorry, I've been chased by law-breaking beasts recently. It's a conditioned reflex. Cut the crap. My lord wants you to go in and take a look. Gavin couldn't be bothered to argue with Zi-chan. After all, it was impossible to come out alive after entering. Zi-chan said, Only important people have the right to explore the potholes. I'm only in the second force state. How could the lord let me go? Even if they want someone to enter, it should be someone like you who has reached the 3 realms of strength. Only the strong will be able to find useful clues inside. Gavin obviously didn't expect Zichun to say such a thing, and his face immediately darkened. Obviously, he was trying to kill him on purpose. His face darkened, and he said coldly, "Cut the crap and go in quickly." At this moment, Ronald also stood up and shouted at Zichun, "Are you going to disobey Master's orders?" Gavin turned to the 2 spellbreakers and said, "This person is extremely cunning and has strong survivability. We will definitely find useful clues if we go in." Ronald also chimed in, "That's right. My boss is very familiar with the people here and knows how capable they are. My lord, sending him in is the most appropriate choice." Bullsh *T. I was sent here on the day I arrived. You don't even know my name. How can you understand me? It was obvious that the other party wanted him dead. Zichun did not care about their expressions and cursed, "You 2 black-hearted bastards. You just want me to die. Don't make it sound so nice. If you have the ability, you 2 can go in. One of you is in the 2nd force state, and the other is in the 3rd force state. Won't the chances of survival be higher if you team up? The Lord has already ordered. You don't have the right to choose. Now, you have to go in even if you don't want to." Gavin said coldly. Zichun walked forward. "If you want me to go in, that's fine. But this idiot has to come with me." Zichun pointed at Ronald. Ronald's expression changed drastically. Obviously, he didn't dare to go in. Zichun's meaning was clear. He would only die if he went in. "This is not appropriate. Only one person can go in," Gavin said, obviously wanting to protect Ronald. Zichun sneered, "Not appropriate. Then you go in. You ugly people are too troublesome." Hearing the argument, the woman said impatiently, You go in first. They can go in after you die." The woman pointed at Zichun. No matter what, the 4 of them came here together. They had met each other before. Since they were going to die, of course they should let the strangers go first. Zichun glanced at the 2 spellbreakers. The woman looked at him with disdain. "Why? You don't want to?" Zichun immediately shook his head. "No? Then why aren't you going in? Why are you dawdling here?" Ronald shouted coldly, "Don't you know that the Lord wants to vomit when he sees you? Why aren't you scramming?" Zichun walked toward Ronald, his eyes cold. "What are you doing?" Seeing Zichun walking over, Ronald's eyes were filled with fear, and he immediately stepped back. The others saw this and their expressions changed. "Don't misunderstand, Lord. I need a handy weapon. I think the one in his hand is just right." After Zichun finished speaking, he suddenly increased his speed and arrived in front of Ronald in an instant. Ronald's eyes were filled with fear. He immediately raised the long whip in his hand. Zichun's eyes flashed with cold killing intent. "You're right about one thing. I'm faster than you." At this moment, many people walked out of the room. After seeing this scene, their expressions changed. Was Zichun planning to force his way in? After all, there were 3 powerhouses here. At this moment, Zichun's palm fell. It was indeed faster than the long whip. Destruction. A powerful force surged, forming a strange law attack that landed on Ronald's body. Buzz. Ronald's body suddenly trembled, and the long whip stopped in midair. Zichun reached out and grabbed the long whip. Looking at the widened eyes of Ronald, he thanked him. As soon as he finished speaking, Zichun retreated. Ronald's body immediately split into pieces. As if his soul had been devoured by the annihilating shadow beast, his body turned into several pieces of crystal, then turned into infinite laws and disappeared. This scene shocked everyone. That included the 2 spellbreakers. They had never seen such a technique before. They were all shocked. Gavin was even more shocked. If the other party was also at the 3rd level of strength, would he end up like Ronald? He felt sorry for Ronald's death, but it was not to the extent of lamenting. At this moment, he felt a deep fear in his heart. If Zichun was allowed to live and grow to the 3rd strength state, what awaited him would be death. They had already become enemies. Zichun held the long whip and turned to look at Kevin, whose expression was changing, and said, "Why? Do you want to go down with me?" Kevin was indeed tempted. As a 3rd strength state, it should be no problem for him to kill the other party. However, after a slight hesitation, he gave up. Even the two fourth strength state cultivators were scared out of their wits. A mere second strength state cultivator would definitely die. Why? You don't dare? Zichen's lips curled into a mocking smile. You talk too much nonsense. Hurry up and go down, or I'll slap you to death. Chapter 5005. The female spellbreaker had an impatient look on her face. She looked like she was going to slap Zichun to death if he didn't go in. Both parties seemed to have fallen into a cycle. The spellbreaker did not dare to enter the mine, but she dared to kill Zichun. Zichun dared to enter the mine, but he dared not fight the spellbreaker. Zichun felt that if he fought Gavin, who was at the third strength realm, he might win. However, in front of the two spellbreakers, he did not dare to provoke them. Why aren't you going in? Seeing that Zichun did not move, the female spellbreaker impatiently urged again, Do you really want to die? Zichun took the whip and prepared to enter the mine. Wait, give it to me. The female spellbreaker spoke again, her eyes fixed on the whip in Zichun's hand. My lady, there may be danger in there. I need to protect myself with it, Zichun said in a low voice. You'll die if you go in. It's a waste to take it. The female spellbreaker said disdainfully. The female spellbreaker liked the whip very much. She had shown it on the way here. Originally, Ronald planned to give the whip to her when they left, but he did not expect to be killed by Zichun. And it was a slap. In the female's opinion, Zichun would definitely die if he entered. Instead of dying in there and burying the whip forever, it was better to give it to her first. Gavin stood at the side and sneered. The other party was aggressive and had a bad attitude, but Zichun did not dare to refute her. He threw the whip over, and the female caught it with a look of disdain. Zichun could actually make a few sarcastic remarks, but he gave up after thinking about it. If he was not strong enough, he would only be courting death. Without his weapon, Zichun walked into the mine under the watchful eyes of the crowd. He played a trick and entered the mine from another direction instead of the one that the two of them had just escaped from. At this moment, the female spoke again. Come back. Go in from here and see what's inside. Zichun frowned and said, Even the two of you are going to die in there, let alone me? It's your honor to send you to your death. You have to enter from here, or else you'll die right now. The woman threatened. How do you want to die? Pick one. Gavin smiled at the side. With this woman deliberately targeting him, Zichun had no choice but to die. Even if he made it out alive, he would probably be killed by her. It was obvious that Zichun had completely annoyed her. If it weren't for the fact that she wanted him to enter the mine, she would have killed him already. Zichun had no choice but to enter from the original entrance. The inside of the cave was gloomy and full of darkness. After walking for a few dozen feet, it was as dark as the night outside. Along the way, they could see some burnt firewood ashes. It seemed that many people had mined here in the past, and at the same time, they used firewood as a source of light. The surroundings grew increasingly gloomy and dark. Zichun's eyes began to flicker as he activated his immortal spiritual eye. The mine extended all the way into the ground, and the path ahead was still incomparably dark. Zichun didn't move forward. Instead, he stayed where he was. It was clear that he didn't plan to go deeper and would just wait here. Perhaps he would be able to wait until the second person arrived. They definitely wouldn't expect that he would continue to stay here and not go deeper. He wasn't stupid. Why would he obediently go in to die? However, this situation only lasted for a quarter of an hour before Zichun regretted it. He stood up and took the initiative to go deeper. If he stayed here, no one would discover him. But what would he do at night? What if an even more dangerous existence appeared? Therefore, it was better to go in and investigate. With the immortal spiritual eye, the surroundings became incomparably bright. Zichun held extreme energy in his left hand and the bone staff in his right. This was a little safer. As he went deeper, a desolate aura began to spread. The sharp killing intent caused Zichun to shiver. Could there really be a dangerous existence inside? Zichun's expression changed, and he walked even more cautiously. There were scattered stones on the ground, as well as some traces of battle. Suddenly, a desolate aura spread from the front. Faintly, Zichun seemed to see a light shadow. He raised the bone staff in his hand and slashed forward. Wong. Boundless light scattered, and the light shadow in front of him was scattered. The moment the bone staff fell, Zichun understood that it was just a stream of air that carried a cold aura. Continuing down, this place was as bright as day under the immortal spiritual eye. A dazzling light appeared in front of Zichun. Under the immortal spiritual eye, it was like a sun. He saw a sparkling crystal. That's the crystal that everyone mined? Zichun was very surprised. He originally thought that he would need to go deeper to find it. He didn't expect to encounter it just as he arrived here. However, as Zichun approached, the crystal suddenly shattered. An intense, desolate aura filled the surroundings. A black shadow rushed straight at Zichun. Zichun raised the bone staff, but before it could fall, the black shadow fell on Zichun's body. Poof! In an instant, Zichun's heart was pierced, and a large hole appeared in his chest. Zichun immediately felt weak and quickly retreated. The extreme energy in his hand was being rapidly refined to mend the wound on his chest. The black shadow disappeared, but it was still an intense killing intent. There was no real living thing. However, the killing intent was real. It was hidden in the crystal. It was like countless years ago, when the killing intent of an expert manifested. It was unintentionally sealed. Zichun's face was pale. The killing intent from before was too fast, and he had no time to react. He used up 2 streams of energy to mend the hole in his chest. When he moved forward again, he became very careful. However, he didn't encounter any other killing intent along the way. Going deeper and deeper, just as he was about to reach the bottom, Zichun saw another crystal. This time, he was much more careful. However, before he could get close, the crystal shattered on its own. This time, Zichun was prepared. The bone staff in his hand slashed down, smashing toward the killing intent. Light poured out, and the killing intent disappeared. However, before Zichun could breathe a sigh of relief, he heard cracking sounds behind him. He turned around and saw a dazzling light. Those were all crystals. They appeared out of thin air and appeared in front of Zichun's escape path. At the moment, these crystals shattered, and a lot of killing intent appeared. Zichun's face changed greatly. He wanted to run forward, but when he turned around, he saw even more killing intent. There was no path in front or behind. His vision was filled with killing intent. What awaited Zichun was death. At this moment of life and death, a light suddenly appeared beside Zichun. This light, with Zichun as the center, spun quickly. All the killing intent that came in contact with it disappeared. It wasn't destroyed, but absorbed. Chapter 5006. The slaughtering spirit turned into a ray of light and danced around Zichun. Everywhere it went, the cold killing intent was absorbed. When Zichun obtained the bone rod, the body part next to the bone rod was filled with killing intent. The killing intent was absorbed by the slaughtering spirit. Now, at this moment, the slaughtering spirit showed itself. When Zichun saw this scene, he was both surprised and delighted. Not only did the slaughtering spirit save his life, it also became another big help for him after he obtained the bone rod. He would remember this grudge for scheming against him. The more power a person has, the more they will think. Even though the woman was aggressive, Zichun knew that he could not do anything to her. As for hatred, it was meaningless. But now, it was different. He had the slaughtering spirit. If he ambushed her, it was not impossible to succeed. As long as he grasped the right timing, he would be able to get his revenge very quickly. Of course, before that, Zichun felt that he had to go in and take a look. The slaughtering spirit's nourishment was endless killing intent. If there was a lot of killing intent here, it would strengthen the slaughtering spirit. Taking out a ray of extreme energy, Zichun continued to move forward while refining it. After the slaughtering spirit appeared, his energy was being consumed. Plus, the bone rod and the celestial spiritual eye were being consumed. He needed to replenish them. The crystal from before did not appear again. But Zichun's doubts did not disappear for a long time. There was obviously no one here. Then what was with the crystal that suddenly appeared behind him? When he walked past, he did not see it. Just like that, they continued to go deeper, and the killing intent they encountered along the way became even more terrifying. Buzz. The slaughtering spirit shook and released specks of light that enveloped Zichen. A clear feeling spread throughout his body, blocking out all the killing intent around him. Zichen could feel the slaughtering spirit's mood. It was very happy and was very satisfied with this place. The tunnel continued to extend downwards. Along the way, there were some forks. Zichen did not take a detour and walked all the way to the bottom. With the protection of the slaughter spirit, there were no other dangers along the way. Zichen walked all the way to the underground. When they arrived at the underground, the area here was even larger, and it was also the end. Looking around, there were crystals everywhere, and the light was very dazzling. The people who came here to mine should have stopped. The reason they stopped was not because they retreated, but because they died. These crystals were like a huge and complete seal. Inside the seal was a messy battlefield. Through the crystal, Zichen saw some broken weapons and mutilated corpses. Other than that, he didn't see a complete thing. The slaughter spirit trembled, releasing strands of aura. At this moment, a crack suddenly appeared on the crystal in front of him, and then it exploded. A terrifying killing intent instantly enveloped the surroundings. It was as if countless sword lights were pressing against one's heart, forming a deadly crisis. Wong, the slaughter spirit, released a blazing light that swallowed up all the killing intent nearby. Like a whale sucking in water, the killing intent couldn't even get close to Zichen before it was completely devoured by the spirit of slaughter. The crystal in front of him was disappearing, and the things inside the crystal were also disappearing. As the crystal shattered, it was as if they had been washed away by the river of time, disappearing and vanishing. The crystal was disappearing in large amounts. This battle that took place many years ago disappeared just like that, and no one would know about it in the future. During this time, Zichen paid special attention to some broken weapons. There was a high chance that they could be preserved, but as the crystal shattered and the killing intent surged out, those things that were previously clear turned into ashes and disappeared. Zichen stood in place, watching the crystal shatter and disappear completely. The slaughter spirit released a cheerful mood. At first, it was absorbing above Zichen's head, but later, it turned into a stream of light and flew forward. The infinite killing intent followed it and was absorbed by it. Zichen leaned against the mine, watching this shocking scene. The infinite light in his eyes was also quickly dimming. After using up the extreme energy, Zichen took out a second one. The slaughter spirit's devouring and flying consumed Zichen's energy, not his own. At the beginning, after it appeared in this world, it didn't use its own power anymore. Perhaps it didn't want to use it, or perhaps it didn't have any power to use. The sky darkened, and it was pitch black all around. Gavin invited the two spellbreakers into his room, but he was strongly rejected. The woman looked at everyone and felt disgusted. How could she stay here? Gavin ordered the others to bring over a lot of firewood and light a bonfire. There wasn't much else here, but there was a lot of firewood. This was because the first Strength Realm cultivators could use it when they went in to mine. The night here was very dangerous, but for the two fourth Strength Realm cultivators, it was nothing. Everyone else returned to their rooms, and staying in their rooms made them feel at ease. "Sir, do we still need to send people in tomorrow?" Gavin asked. Zichen had been in there for so long, and the chances of him dying were very high. The two people who knew what was inside were naturally aware of this. Even they were afraid of the killing intent, let alone a second Strength Realm cultivator. The man said, "Send someone in tomorrow. If he doesn't find anything valuable, he'll just go back." The woman next to him played with the long whip in her hand and asked, "Do you have anyone to choose?" "There's one more. He came with Zichen. We can send him in tomorrow." Gavin was, of course, referring to Miao Pengfei. "All right." The man nodded. Suddenly, his expression changed. He turned to look into the distance, and his expression became alert. Gavin didn't find anything, and his expression didn't change much. The man stood up and looked ahead with a cold expression. He shouted, "You're courting death." A ray of light appeared in his hand, and it fell forward. The ray of light was like a sharp blade, flying forward and cutting through an empty space. Gavin stared ahead, but he didn't see anything. This vanishing shadow beast is indeed difficult to deal with. After the ray of light disappeared, the man said gloomily, With his current strength, he could only see the vanishing shadow beast, but it was extremely difficult to kill it. Fortunately, the vanishing shadow beast had retreated. In the mine, the spirit of slaughter devoured all the killing intent. The crystal in front of Zichun also disappeared. This place became a ruin, and there was no more value. The only thing that was valuable was the killing intent in the crystal. After looking carefully again, Zichun didn't find anything else, so he turned around and left. During this time, he encountered a fork in the road. He walked in again, and soon saw a similar crystal. Chapter 5007. The crystals that appeared in front of Zichun did not all contain killing intent. They were pure energy, almost the same as the ones he fished out from the extreme vortex, except that they were much smaller. It seemed that the people here relied on these crystals to survive. Zichun stepped forward and knocked off a piece. He held it in his hand and tried to refine it, but to no avail. He guessed that he needed to break it down, so he tried to put it away, but to no avail. The rules of both sides were somewhat incompatible. If these crystals could be refined directly, then Zichun would not be in a hurry to leave. He would just stay here and wait until he broke through to the third strength realm one day before he left. Since he could not refine them directly, he had to leave. That was because the extreme energy in his body would be used up one day. Zichun did not find any killing intent in this cave, so he retreated and went to the other caves. When he reached the fifth one, he found killing intent again, but it was obviously not as strong as the ones at the beginning. It was absorbed by the slaughter spirit. The next day, when the sky was bright, Gavin ordered someone to call Miao Pengfei out and let him go down to investigate. Miao Pengfei's expression was very ugly, but he did not dare to refuse. Even Zichun, who was so strong, did not dare to resist, let alone him. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Miao Pengfei walked in, following Zichun's path. He chose this dangerous path because Miao Pengfei firmly believed that with Zichun's ability and means, the chances of him dying were not high. After going a little deeper, Miao Pengfei saw a light in front of him. Just as his expression changed and he was full of vigilance, Zichun's voice rang out. "Why did you come down?" Hearing Zichun's voice, Miao Pengfei heaved a huge sigh of relief. When he saw Zichun approaching, he could not wait to hug Zichun and give him a big kiss. Zichun was not dead, so he was saved. "Did those three ask you to come down?" Zichun asked as he approached. Miao Pengfei nodded. "If you don't come down, you'll die. That's why I came. I was sure that nothing would happen to you, and it was just as I thought." The two of them began to turn back. Miao Pengfei heard the sound of collisions and was puzzled. "What did you bring?" Zichun said, "The crystals should be what the others need." Zichun was carrying a basket made of tree branches on his back. He had found it in a mine, and it was probably used by other miners. He had put all the crystals he had found into it. After the two of them walked out, the eyes of Gavin and the other two widened. They looked at Zichun as if they were looking at a ghost. "You're still alive?" The man was shocked. The woman was also in disbelief. After entering, "I didn't find any danger, but I did find these things." Zichun walked to the front and put down the basket in his hand. Pieces of crystals appeared one after another. Looking at these crystals, Jia Wen's expression changed as he said, "These crystals aren't low grade." The man didn't care about the grade of the crystals, but he was surprised that Zichun could survive. "You really didn't encounter any danger?" Zichun shook his head and said, "When I first went in, I felt that it was very cold, so I waited for a while. After my body adapted, I continued to go deeper." The woman said disdainfully, "You can adapt to the killing intent? It's just that the killing intent disappeared." "What killing intent?" Zichun asked in confusion. "Do I need to tell you?" The woman looked at him with disdain. "You're lucky, kid. It seems that the two of us extinguished all the killing intent before, and when you went in, the killing intent just happened to disappear. That's why you survived." The man nodded, then looked at the crystals in the basket. "Are there more crystals in there?" "Not a lot, but not a little either. It's just that I was in a hurry, so I only found a small portion." Zichun said, "So, you didn't look carefully?" The man's eyes gradually turned cold. "You didn't complete the task diligently?" Zichun's expression changed. It's not that I didn't want to, but some places are very cold, and I couldn't see what was inside, so I didn't dare to go in. So, you came out. The man's eyes became even colder. How dare you disobey an order? Do you want to die? I wouldn't dare, sir. You misunderstood. I can still go in and explore. Zichen hurriedly said, obviously afraid of the man. Oh? The man's eyes lit up. It's very big inside, and I need to bring some firewood in. It should take a long time to explore. Zichen paused when he spoke up to this point. Then why aren't you going in? Do you want to die? The woman said impatiently, Sir, I don't have much extreme energy left. After going in, it will consume a lot of energy. I'm afraid I won't be able to last for more than a few days. Zichen said with a troubled expression. Hearing this, the man immediately looked at Kevin. Kevin didn't quite believe Zichen's words, but he couldn't find any loopholes. He didn't dare to go in and see if it was true or false. Here, Kevin took out 4 strands of energy, which should have been Zichen's reward. Zichen took it and murmured, I think I can last for another day. I don't know how long I can go in. The man frowned slightly, dissatisfaction on his face. Here. This time, Kevin took out 20 strands of extreme energy and directly gave them to Zichen. Of course, his expression wasn't very good. Zichen smiled and hurriedly thanked him. Kevin snorted coldly. Next, Zichen put down the crystals, put some firewood in a basket, and carried a large bundle into the mine. Miao Pengfei stood in the distance and didn't go in with Zichen. Zichen had clearly said that he could walk faster alone and didn't need others to follow him. After entering the mine again, Zichen lit up a piece of firewood symbolically. Then, he carried it and went to the other mines. He was really exploring this mineral vein. Of course, the most important thing was to find the killing intent in it. During this time, after walking through a few more mines, Zichen finally encountered a large-scale killing intent. The slaughter spirit flew out and began to devour to its heart's content. Zichen also made up his mind to stay here for another 5 days. Regardless of whether he could break through in 5 days, or whether the slaughter spirit could level up, he had to go out and settle this matter with those 3. Zichen didn't come out, so the 3 waited patiently outside. Time passed day by day, and the 3 clearly became anxious. During this time, Kevin suggested that Miao Pengfei go in and take a look. The man shook his head and didn't agree. Because several days had already passed, it was naturally impossible to meet Zichen again. Let's wait for 6 days. He estimated that with Zichen's energy, he should be able to last for 6 days. On the 5th day, Zichen walked out with the crystals on his back. He's still alive. The 2 spellbreakers were very surprised. This was enough to prove that the danger here had been eliminated. At the same time, there was a large vein underground, and they could continue to mine. The 2's mission was completed, and they could go back. As for Zichen, he was naturally useless. Chapter 5008. Recently, I really haven't been in the right state of mind. My writing is too bad. I'll stop updating for a few days and wait for the big update before updating again. Thunder Marshal will stop updating for a few days. It is in the middle of updating. Please wait for a moment. After the content is updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 5009. Zichen felt a strong threat and guessed their intentions. He said calmly, Sir, I found a strange place underground. What place? The man asked. At the end of a mine. It was a little cold and I didn't dare to go too deep, but I tried to throw a torch over. There was a faint reflection of light. It seemed to be a large crystal. Zichen gestured with his hands. It was about this big, about 2 feet wide. It's just a piece of broken crystal. What's so strange about it? The woman said indifferently, her eyes cold. Zichen scratched his head and said, I've heard that some weapons come from crystals. Since it's such a large piece of crystal, there might be something inside it. Of course, I'm just guessing because I don't dare to go there. Really? The man looked at Zichen. Zichen immediately shook his head. I'm just guessing. I don't take it seriously. Gavin stared at Zichen's eyes. He didn't believe Zichen's words and seemed to want to see if it was true or not. The man's eyes gradually turned cold. Zichen hurriedly explained again. Sir, I really can't be sure if there's really something inside. Lead the way. The man snorted, and a cold, murderous intent flashed in his eyes. If you dare to lie to me, you know the consequences. I wouldn't dare. I wouldn't dare. Zichun went back to get some firewood and carried it in the basket behind him. Let's go together. The man looked at the woman beside him. Although the woman was very tempted, she shook her head. She had already obtained a weapon when she came here, and it was very handy to use. If there was really a weapon inside, she wouldn't mind getting another one. However, she wasn't used to the environment. It was damp and dark, making her feel nauseous. I'll wait for you here. Zichun came out with the firewood and happened to hear the man's words. He was very surprised, but he didn't show it. He thought that the two of them would go in together. After all, if there was a crisis, they could take care of each other. What Zichun didn't know was that because he didn't die after going in for a few days, the two of them subconsciously thought that there was no danger here. Before going down, Zichun looked at Gavin. Gavin frowned. Why are you looking at me? Isn't it enough that you have an adult accompanying you? I'm running out of energy here, Zichun said. This was what they relied on to survive. Humph. Gavin snorted and took out 8 more strands of energy. In fact, he only wanted to give 2 strands of energy, but considering that Zichun would definitely not be able to come out after going in, he decided to give a few more strands to prevent Zichun from suddenly going back on his word or playing some other tricks. Zichun took the power and walked towards the mine. The man followed behind and signaled for the woman to wait. After entering the mine, Zichun lit a torch and began to descend. The man followed behind and said indifferently, "Are you sure you can still find it?" "Yes, I have a mark." Following the direction of Zichun's finger, the man saw some markings. Zichun turned left and right in the mine. The entire cave was dimly lit. The man followed behind and occasionally urged him to ask how much longer it would take. Finally, Zichun pointed ahead and said, "My lord, it's here." A cold, murderous intent flashed in the man's eyes. "My lord, follow me." But before he could do anything, Zichun quickly walked forward. After entering the mine, Zichun exclaimed, "My lord, come and see. There's really something good." When the man heard the voice, he quickly followed and appeared in this place. He saw a large number of crystals, but with the appearance of the crystals, there was also a cold, murderous intent. Pa, pa, pa. The crystals broke, and the murderous intent surged, heading straight for the man. The man's expression changed drastically, and he shouted angrily, "How dare you scheme against me? You're courting death." But when he turned around again, he couldn't see Zichun anymore. "Damn it!" He cursed, turned around, and ran. Just as he reached the entrance of the cave, he saw a light coming from ahead. It was Zichun holding the bone staff and attacking with all his might. At the same time, he also saw Zichun's shining eyes. This made the man shocked and angry, and he could only use all his strength to attack forward. Behind him was a terrifying, murderous intent, and he didn't dare to stay here. He only dashed forward. As long as he left this place, Zichun would die. After colliding with the bone staff, a powerful shock wave shook the man's body. His forward momentum was blocked, and Zichun flew backward. A powerful force came from the bone staff. After all, there was a difference of 2 forces between them. Ah! The man let out a scream. Because of the short pause, the murderous intent surged. He glanced behind him, and then continued to run. At this moment, a strong murderous intent suddenly appeared. Puff! It was the massacre spirit. Like a stream of light, it instantly pierced through the man's head. After being hit by the massacre spirit, the man didn't die, but he became extremely weak. At this moment, Zichun, who had flipped himself up, struck down a second time. He used 2 forces to the extreme, and this staff was his most powerful attack. At this moment, Zichun's eyes were cold, and his murderous intent was boundless. If his opponent didn't die, he would die. This was a fight for his life. "Get lost." The man shouted and punched again. For forces exploded. Boom. The powerful shock wave sent Zichun flying again. The difference in strength between the two was too great. At the same time, Zichun was glad that only one of the 2 4 forces state cultivators came. The man stopped again, and this time, He even took 2 steps back. More murderous intent swept over from behind. At the same time, the massacre spirit was among them. With a puff, it pierced through the man's heart. Zichen flipped himself up and retreated at lightning speed. The massacre spirit followed him out, but it didn't devour the murderous intent. At this moment, the murderous intent had surrounded the man. Ah! A blood-curdling scream was heard, and the man's life was quickly draining away. Zichen stood on the other side of the cave, listening carefully to the movements inside. After feeling the murderous intent disappear, Zichen walked in with the bone staff. He saw the man's body turn into a crystal and start to disappear. There was still a part of the murderous intent left, and it was devoured by the massacre spirit. You asked for it. Zichen's expression was cold, and he started to turn back. Since the man was dead, it was the woman's turn. After the previous battle, he knew the difference between the two of them, so he couldn't fight head-on. Zichen started to turn back, and when he was about to reach the cave, he suddenly cried for help. Help, help me. There's a murderous intent, a terrifying murderous intent. Sir is dead. Save me. I don't want to die. His voice sounded very mournful and terrified, and it spread to the outside. Sir is dead, and the murderous intent is chasing after him. Save him. Kevin, who was still waiting outside, heard Zichen's cry, and his face suddenly changed. Of course, he wouldn't save him, and he planned to turn and run. Chapter 50:10. Gavin was stunned. He thought the other party would go in and take a look. Even if she didn't go in herself, she should send someone else to check the situation. But she didn't. After hearing Zichen's last words, the other party turned and ran. Even Gavin couldn't compare to her decisiveness. Gavin followed. Sir, what about here? Forget it. Wait for the order. The woman's figure was already far away. She didn't want to stay here for a moment longer. Seeing this, the others were all dumbfounded. They didn't know whether to run or not. Miao Pengfei was stunned. He couldn't believe that Zichen was dead. Just like that, he had a feeling that something was wrong. Run. The leader, Ogre, ran. There was danger everywhere. There was also an unusual situation in the mineral vein. Gavin and the Spellbreaker had run away. If they continued to stay here, they would definitely die. As soon as Ogre moved, the others followed. Miao Pengfei was left behind, standing there hesitantly. He didn't believe that Zichen was dead. Even if he was really dead, the bone staff should still be there. It was an amazing weapon. Should he go in and pick it up? But what if there was danger inside? He would die if he went in. Miao Pengfei fell into hesitation. Let's go. Miao Pengfei also ran. Obviously, his life was more important. However, after running for a while, he turned back and returned. The road ahead was long, and he could die at any time. Instead of being in a precarious situation, he might as well go in and take a gamble. Whether Zichen was dead or not, he wouldn't be at a disadvantage if he turned back. After returning, Miao Pengfei took some firewood and went into the cave. After lighting the firewood, he began to go down, carefully checking the surroundings. Zichen had been waiting in the cave. He wanted to ambush the woman, but she didn't appear. Instead, he saw Miao Pengfei. Why did you come down? Where are they? Zichen's voice was so sudden that Miao Pengfei was startled and almost threw the firewood in his hand. I knew you weren't dead. Seeing Zichen in front of him, Miao Pengfei was excited. Did they ask you to come down? Zichen looked at Miao Pengfei. No, they all ran away. I was sure you weren't dead, so I followed you. Miao Pengfei said, What about that guy? Is he dead? Zichen nodded. Miao Pengfei exhaled and said, This place is too dangerous. There's no good person here. If I had known earlier, I would have stayed where I was. Miao Pengfei had just arrived, and he had already offended someone for no apparent reason. Furthermore, he had almost been tricked to death. Miao Pengfei was clearly very depressed. Did they really run away? Zichen was still a little worried. They've all run away. Not a single one is left. Miao Pengfei placed the firewood at the side. I think this place will be completely abandoned. Zichen felt relieved. He had been thinking about how to fight with his life on the line, but now it seemed that there was no need for that. You didn't leave with us, so you can only stay here. Zichen looked at Miao Pengfei and said, "Can you still hold on with your strength? When I run out of strength, I'll go out to hunt the law-breaking beasts." Miao Pengfei was very open-minded. If Zichen died, he could get the bone rod and his chances of survival would be higher. If he didn't die, following Zichen would be better than following those people. After all, Zichen could see the annihilating shadow beasts. Zichen had obviously guessed Miao Pengfei's intentions for coming back, but he didn't say anything. If he really died, the thing would naturally be left to the fated person. "What's inside?" Miao Pengfei asked. He was actually curious about how Zichen had killed the law-breaking beast. "There's killing intent. It's very scary. It's sealed in the crystal." Zichen simply explained what had happened. He didn't say a word about the killing spirit. "They've already left. There's no point in us staying here any longer. We might as well wait outside." Miao Pengfei said, "It's dark here. We can't see anything. The buildings outside are all empty. It's safer to stay there than here." Zichen had no objections. The two of them walked out of the cave. Although there were many crystals here, Zichen couldn't exchange them for extreme energy, so he had to go out eventually. He had already made up his mind. He would only leave when he broke through to the Three Forces realm. In the meantime, he would stay here. The two of them had just walked to the cave entrance when Miao Pengfei's expression suddenly changed. He stopped moving forward. Zichen followed and saw the abnormality in front. "You really didn't die." Kevin was standing outside the cave entrance with his men. He seemed to be waiting for the two of them to come out. "How do you know I'm not dead?" Zichen looked at Kevin. Miao Pengfei was also puzzled. He didn't know what went wrong. "It was so dangerous earlier. This idiot didn't run with us. There's obviously a problem." Kevin did run earlier, but halfway there, he realized that Miao Pengfei didn't follow him. This made him suspicious, so he turned around and came back. He didn't expect that he would really see him. The others also looked at Zichen in surprise. Since he didn't die, the Four Forces Realm cultivator was obviously dead. Zichen was just a Two Forces Realm cultivator. How did he do it? Zichen's eyes flashed with murderous intent. "Since you know I'm not dead, how dare you?" Before he could finish, Zichen suddenly grabbed Miao Pengfei and shouted, "Let's go." The two of them quickly entered the cave. As soon as they disappeared, a ray of light came from the side and whizzed past. It was the woman's long whip that swept over. Obviously, it wasn't just Kevin who didn't run. The woman also came back. Zichen pulled Miao Pengfei and immediately ran toward the cave. Chase after him. Kevin was very regretful that the other party had failed. However, he obviously couldn't let Zichen escape now. But as he waved his hand, the others hesitated and didn't immediately chase after him. Zichen could even kill a Four Forces Realm cultivator in the mine, let alone them. Looking at the timid look of the others, Kevin couldn't help but feel a touch of anger on his face. At this moment, Zichen's voice suddenly sounded from inside. "You two, I'll wait for you inside." As soon as this sentence came out, Kevin, who was about to rush in, suddenly stopped. Slap, slap. The woman walked over, picked up the long whip and hit the cave a few times. At this moment, her face was full of annoyance. Kevin was also very annoyed. He had guessed that Zichen might be alive, so he asked the woman to hide in the dark. As long as Zichen appeared, she would kill him. Unfortunately, the woman disliked the smell of the others and refused to come close, so they missed the best opportunity to kill Zichen. Now that Zichen had run in, who would dare to go in? When Zichen shouted for help at the cave entrance, it was obvious that he wanted to lure the two of them in to kill him. Although Kevin didn't understand what was going on, he really didn't dare to go in now. Of course, the woman didn't dare either. Otherwise, she wouldn't have run away before. "Just wait here. When he comes out, we'll kill him directly." Chapter 50:11. Zichen and Miao Pengfei ran into the cave again and went deeper and deeper. Miao Pengfei was ashamed. If he had not exposed his weakness, those people would have left and Zichen would not be in danger. Now that the road was blocked, it seemed that death was the only thing left. After entering the depths of the mine, Zichen stopped. I'm sorry, I dragged you into this." Miao Pengfei looked guilty. "It's okay, I'm not dead yet." Zichen smiled and did not seem to care. but he knew that this was indeed troublesome. After this incident, that woman obviously would not come in, and Zichun had no way to kill her. If she kept waiting there, what awaited him and Miao Pengfei might really be death. What's more, there was not only a woman in the fourth strength state outside, but also a third strength state Gavin, which was also a great problem. If the woman could come in, Zichun certainly had a way to kill her. Unfortunately, she could not come in, so the killing intent here could not restrain her, unless he could take it out. Suddenly, Zichun's expression changed slightly, and a thought flashed through his mind. The woman obviously would not come in, so what if he went out with the killing intent? The killing intent was sealed in the crystal. After Zichun's investigation, not all the killing intent would explode as soon as it got close. Some of it needed to be guided by force. If he brought this part of the killing intent out, would he be able to kill the other party? Zichun's heart moved, and he had an idea. He turned to look at Miao Pengfei and asked, "Do you still have energy in your body?" Miao Pengfei nodded. "Yes, how much do you want?" "Next, you can act freely. I have a way to kill them." "What way?" Miao Pengfei looked a little excited. "The fourth strength state warrior died under the killing intent. I just need to find some crystals with killing intent, and I can probably kill them." Zichun looked at Miao Pengfei. "However, I'm not sure which crystals with killing intent will not explode directly, so you need to act on your own, or keep a distance from me so that you can escape when danger comes. I'd better follow you from afar." Miao Pengfei thought for a while and said, he was not familiar with this place, and he could only survive if he followed Zichun. Zichun heard and shook his head. "No, you'd better not follow me, because once the killing intent appears, you will definitely die. How about this? You stay here. If you feel anything strange outside, run deeper and remember to call for me at the same time." This method was obviously the most reliable. This place was safe enough, but if they went deeper, it would be hard to say. Just like the first time when he came in, when he turned his head, there was some killing intent behind him. Once he encountered it, he would definitely die. If he knew it, he would not be able to kill him. He would be able to kill SSS way. If he could kill him, and he would have killed he would have killed could kill him. Therefore, he was very clear about this kind of thing. He nodded and stopped here. "If there is no energy, you can call for me," Zichun said before he went deeper, "but I will come back in about 24 hours. "Okay, be careful." The two parted ways, and Zichun walked into the depths of the forest with ease. When he sensed killing intent, he would take out the slaughter spirit, but he did not allow it to take the initiative to attack. The area was very large, and there were many mines. Even until now, Zichun had not explored all of them. Zichun even guessed that this place might lead to other places. If there was no other way, he would try to explore one cave after another until he found another exit. However, this method consumed too much energy and energy. He could persevere, but Miao Pengfei might not. There were many crystals with killing intent, but most of them would break on their own when Zichun arrived, and the killing intent filled the air. With the slaughter spirit, Zichun was not afraid, and all the killing intent was easily absorbed. Searching among the many crystals, Zichun finally found a piece of killing intent that had not exploded. It was a palm-sized crystal. The killing intent contained in it was very strong, and it looked like a sapphire. Zichun took it down and then piled it aside. He did not immediately put it away. 2 days later, he collected 5 spar, but he still didn't bring them out with him. Instead, he left them here. This was just in case. He went back to see Miao Pengfei. After the other party told him that there was no abnormality here, Zichun left again and continued to collect. This time, the speed was much faster. In just 1 day, he found 6 pieces of killing intent crystals. 6 days had passed. I knew it. That guy is very cunning. He must have a lot of inventory on him. Gavin, who was waiting outside, saw that the two had not come out for so long, and he was very depressed. His gaze swept to the distance, and the woman once again put some distance between them. Although he did not dare to say it out loud, he still had a lot of complaints in his heart. If it were not for the woman being unreasonable, Zichun would have been dead. Now, he did not know how long he would have to wait. Most importantly, even if Zichun died in there, no one would know. His gaze swept to the side. Those people were all waiting at the side. Even if they were allowed to go in, they would not even be used as cannon fodder. Just as he was about to curse in frustration, a ray of light suddenly shot out from the entrance of the cave. It was Zichun. Both sides looked at each other and were stunned. "You guys are really persistent," Zichun said. His eyes were full of sarcasm, and he was holding crystals in his left and right hands. "Zichun, how dare you come out?" Gavin shouted. On one hand, he was reminding the woman, and on the other hand, he was stalling for time. The woman flew over, and the long whip in her hand danced. The two crystals in Zichun's hands flew out. The moment they touched the long whip, they exploded. In an instant, a cold, murderous intent filled the air. Sensing the aura, the woman's face changed drastically, and she quickly retreated. "You can't run away." Zichun smiled coldly. The basket behind him was full of murderous intent crystals. He took them out one by one and threw them over. Pa, pa, pa. The crystals emitted light, and just as they were about to reach the two of them, they exploded. In an instant, boundless murderous intent filled the air. The woman screamed and retreated. Her eyes were full of fear. Gavin was even more frightened. He was only in the third realm, and after being touched by the murderous intent, 2 holes appeared on his body. He turned and ran, but then he realized that the woman was 1 step faster than him. He cursed in his heart. She was indeed useless. Every time, she ran the fastest. As for the others, they were fleeing frantically. One of them ran too slowly and was hit by the murderous intent. His chest and back were instantly pierced by the murderous intent. He did not have Gavin's vitality, so he fell to the ground and died. Zichun did not intend to kill the others. They could only blame it on their bad luck. Chapter 50:12. Zichun stood there, and there were still more than 20 killing intent crystals behind him. The killing intent from before had completely dissipated after the brief attack. The woman was only slightly injured, and she quickly ran away without looking back. Kevin's injuries were not light, but his life should not be in danger. He was refining the energy while running. Ogre and the others also ran away. It was too dangerous here, and they did not dare to stay, even if Zichun had no intention of killing them. One of the unlucky ones died. In Zichun's field of vision, everyone's figures had completely disappeared. This time, they had completely run away, and the possibility of them turning back was not high. After a while, Miao Pengfei quietly poked his head out of the cave. When he saw the empty surroundings, he was shocked at first, and then a smile appeared on his face. "That thing really works?" Miao Pengfei asked. Zichun nodded. "Do you want to try?" Miao Pengfei shook his head. When Zichun carried the things out, he had deliberately avoided them. Of course, he did not dare to try it now. Everyone had run away, and the two of them were safe. Whether it was Zichun or Miao Pengfei, they were greatly relieved. The only problem now was that the two of them could not convert the crystals into energy. Otherwise, they could always stay here and wait for their realm to increase again before leaving. That night, Zichun and Miao Pengfei stayed outside and lit a bonfire, waiting for the law-breaking beast to come. If they did not have enough extreme energy, the two of them would not be able to survive here. As for Kevin and the others, after running away, they never came back. Because no matter whether they could swallow their anger or not, they could not go back to that place. Going back meant death. That woman ran even faster. Because of her realm, she disappeared in the blink of an eye. She did not appear again after that. After running for half a day, Kevin stopped when the sky was about to turn dark. Damn it! The others went to look for firewood, but Kevin stayed where he was, cursing angrily. "Ronald, that bastard. Why did you have to offend him?" Ronald had been killed by Zichun, but the conflict still existed. If he had not provoked Zichun and caused trouble for no reason, none of this would have happened today. Now, even a 4th Strength Realm cultivator had run away. What could he, a mere 3rd Strength Realm cultivator, change? The problem now was not whether he could escape, but what if Zichun caught up with him? That crystal that contained killing intent was really too terrifying. He had only been attacked by a single killing intent, and his body had already been pierced through. What would happen if there were a few more? Damn it! Gavin was furious. Now, He could only pin his hopes on that B*T. If she went back to get reinforcements, it would not be difficult to kill Zichen. But if she ran back in fear and never came out again, then he would be in danger. The possibility of this happening was very high. Auguste and the others returned with some firewood. After lighting it up, everyone gathered here. Gavin was depressed and did not speak. The others were also silent. This situation continued until one of them suddenly died. The others cried out in alarm and immediately extinguished the flames, guarding their surroundings. The invisible but deadly vanishing shadow beast appeared again. Even Gavin was afraid of such an existence. They were on tenterhooks the whole night. When the sky brightened up, everyone started running. Obviously, no one wanted to come to this place again. Zichen and Miao Pengfei did not encounter any vanishing shadow beasts that night. They did not even encounter any spellbreaker beasts. This disappointed the two of them. According to Zichen's plan, they would first kill a few spellbreaker beasts. After accumulating enough energy, they would enter the mine to look for killing intent crystals. When they had filled up a basket full of killing intent crystals, they would turn back. They didn't find anything that night. During the day, Zichen went into the mine alone. However, it wasn't easy for him to go deeper into the mine in just one day. When the sky darkened, Zichen had almost no gains. At night, the two of them lit a bonfire and waited here. That night, the two of them found 5 spellbreaker beasts. One was in the second force realm, while the others were in the first force realm. After killing them, the two of them went straight into the mine before dawn. Because Miao Pengfei was with Zichen, he was not afraid. Zichen stayed in the depths for a full 10 days before he found enough killing intent crystals. He carried these crystals on his back and came out. It was a huge basket with about $200 in it. After doing this, the two of them did not have much energy left, so they walked out of the mine. Then the two of them went back the way they came. While moving forward, Miao Pengfei and Zichen kept a distance of 200 feet. This was because they were worried that the killing intent crystals would suddenly explode. At night, Zichen put the basket not far away. The two of them stayed together. Miao Pengfei did not rest and was mainly responsible for keeping watch. Zichen sat cross-legged and cultivated. During this time, he could also recover some of his energy. This way, he would consume less energy. Suddenly, Zichen opened his eyes and looked ahead. He saw the shadow again. He frowned slightly and signaled Miao Pengfei to come back. Miao Pengfei did not understand and retreated to Zichen's side. He saw Zichen grab a crystal and throw it at the shadow. Bang! The moment it got close to the shadow, the crystal exploded. The killing intent contained in it seemed to have sensed the shadow's existence and instantly pierced its body. Whoosh! Whoosh! After piercing its body back and forth twice, the killing intent disappeared. The shadow did not suffer any substantial damage, but the appearance of the killing intent seemed to be beyond its expectations. It slowly retreated. What was that? Miao Pengfei asked. He did not see anything. A vanishing shadow beast. Zichen did not hide. Miao Pengfei was shocked. Unfortunately, he could not see what a vanishing shadow beast was. At the same time, he was very lucky to be following Zichen in this unknown place. Otherwise, with his strength, he would not have been able to survive until now. Not long after, a law-breaking beast appeared. Zichen did not waste the killing intent crystals. He directly rushed up with the bone staff. After a violent beating, he obtained more than 10 rays of extreme energy. After that, there was no more danger. The two continued their journey the next day. Because he did not know much about this place, Zichen's target was the place where he had just arrived. He wanted to find Gavin. He was already in the second force realm. With these killing intent crystals, killing Gavin was not a problem at all. After a few days, Zichen and Miao Pengfei finally returned. Along the way, many people cast sidelong glances at the two. You two idiots are still alive? Boudica saw the two and was very surprised. He was the one who had arranged for the two to go out. Where's Gavin? Zichen asked directly. His tone was not polite. How dare you call His Excellency by his name? Do you know? Before Boudica could finish his words, Zichen's palm landed. Buzz. Chapter 50:13. Wang. Energy vibrated as countless threads crisscrossed and slashed across Boudica's body. Boudica was the leader of a small team. As a second-strength realm cultivator, he might not be strong, but he had many second-strength realm subordinates. The others looked over. They were surprised to see that Boudica did not retaliate against the attack. Just as everyone was confused, they saw Boudica's body disintegrate and disappear. There was an uproar in the distance. Boudica died just like that? Miao Pengfei was also shocked. Fortunately, he was more experienced than the others and did not lose his composure. The others stood in the distance and were all shocked. Zichen, who was surrounded by second-strength realm cultivators and carrying a basket of crystals, looked around. Where's Kevin? Kevin was the most powerful person here. No one dared to respond when Zichen called his name. Kevin, get out here. Zichen shouted again. With so many killing intent crystals, he was not afraid even if a fourth-strength realm cultivator came. Naturally, he was not afraid of Kevin, who was only a third-strength realm cultivator. Kevin, get out here. Zichen's voice spread around. He saw that many people had left quietly. They must have gone to find Kevin. Soon, many second-strength realm cultivators surrounded them. There were dozens of them. Their gazes were unfriendly. It was obvious that they did not come with good intentions. Zichen glanced at Miao Pengfei, and the latter immediately retreated. The two of them had already discussed that Miao Pengfei would retreat immediately if anything went wrong. Where's Kevin? Tell him to get out here. Zichen shouted again. Who do you think you are? How dare you call the Lord that? A second-strength realm cultivator said indifferently. These people had obviously seen how Zichen killed Boudica. Even if they did not see it, they should have heard about it. They still dared to come because they had the advantage of numbers. Kid, kneel down and apologize to the Lord. That's right. Kneel down now and the Lord might spare you. Reckless fool. Don't you know where you are? How dare you make such a big fuss here? The level 2 warriors came from all directions. Their eyes were cold, and they all held wooden weapons in their hands. Gavin, it seems that you want them to die. Zichen spun in a circle and looked around. However, I'm not as ruthless as you. I'll give you a chance to live. If you don't want to die, back off. What a joke. Do you think we're so easily frightened? A second-level warrior sneered. The others also roared with laughter. Naturally, no one stepped back. There was no reason for a group of people to lose against one person. The former guide ogre stood in the crowd. When he saw this scene, his eyes were filled with pity. These idiots didn't know that the Lord they were talking about didn't see them as humans at all. These people were all cannon fodder to test Zichen's strength. Sure enough, Zichen wasn't a pushover. After reminding him once, he took out a crystal from behind him and threw it forward, 2 pieces at a time. He quickly threw them in 4 different directions. The crystals exploded with popping sounds, and the killing intent within them surged out. As it approached, the killing intent found its way to the second realm cultivators. Pooh! Pooh! The killing intent was extremely terrifying. It instantly penetrated their bodies. The smile on the face of the second-strength realm cultivator, who was pierced by the killing intent, instantly turned into fear. He screamed and retreated. Pa! 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 Zichen had brought over 200 crystals. This was his first time using them, so he wasn't afraid of using them up. He threw out another dozen crystals. In an instant, the killing intent filled the air. Almost all the second realm cultivators at the front were hit. There were even 3 people who couldn't dodge in time. Their heads were pierced and they fell to the ground, dead. When the others saw this, they frantically retreated. They were terrified. When the crowd saw the crystals in the basket behind Zichen, they were all shocked. They didn't expect the crystals to be so terrifying. In the blink of an eye, everyone retreated. Those who were too slow were already dead. Zichen held 2 crystals in his hands and looked around. I told you that Gavin wanted you to die, but none of you believed me. Zichen looked at the crowd and said, Tell me where Gavin is. These things are prepared for him. They're enough to kill him 10 times over. When the crowd heard this, their faces changed again. Almost subconsciously, many people looked in a certain direction. In that direction, Gavin was standing with a few second realm cultivators. When he saw so many people looking at him, his face immediately turned ugly. When Zichun saw Gavin, he sneered and walked forward. When the crowd saw this action, their expressions changed and they all stepped back. This included the small leaders who were standing with Gavin. At this moment, they also retreated. Zichun, what are you doing? Gavin saw Zichun approaching and pretended to be calm. Zichun's answer was 2 crystals. Gavin's face changed immediately and he quickly retreated. You can't kill me. If you kill me, there will be no more representatives here. Everyone will die. The 2 crystals fell to the ground, but they didn't explode. Gavin retreated 10 feet away. When he saw this, he couldn't help but be stunned. However, when he saw the playful look on Zichun's face, he knew that he had been fooled. If it was any other time, whoever dared to fool him would have to pay with their lives. However, today, facing Zichun, he didn't dare to express his anger. The others coveted the 2 crystals on the ground, but Zichun was moving forward. No one dared to pick them up at this time. Zichun picked up the 2 crystals and said, "If I kill you, I will be the representative. It's different. There are many things to deal with. You won't be able to complete them," Gavin said. "If you keep me alive, everything will run smoothly. The people inside won't pursue the matter. Once I die, everything will stop working. If the people inside pursue the matter, no one will be able to live, including you." A cold light flashed in Zichun's eyes. "Are you threatening me?" I wouldn't dare. Gavin hurriedly said, "I'm telling the truth." At this stage, there was no need to put on airs. If he still put on airs, he would die. After that B*TCH went back, there was no movement. Apparently, she was really afraid and didn't dare to come out again. Regarding the matter of the mineral vein, Gavin once again reported it, but there was no reply from the higher-ups. Now that Zichun had returned, he could only calm Zichun down. "What does it have to do with me whether this place operates or not?" Zichun acted as if he was going to throw the crystals out again. "It has to do with you. Of course it has to do with you." Gavin hurriedly said, "From now on, you are the lord here. You are the lord of everyone. I will hand over all the gains to you. For example," Zichun looked at Gavin. "Now, these powers belong to you, my lord." Gavin flipped his hand, and more than 30 streams of power appeared. Zichun looked at him with a faint smile. Gavin flipped his hand again. This time, more than 100 streams of extreme energy floated in front of him. "Bring them to me." Chapter 50:14. The 2 Strength Realm Cultivator was stunned. He did not expect Zichun to order him to get the energy. Gavin's eyes changed slightly, but he did not say anything. "What are you waiting for?" Zichun glared at him. The 2 Strength Realm Cultivator had no choice but to walk toward Gavin. Gavin glanced at him and gave him the energy. The 2 Strength Realm Cultivators walked over and gave the energy to Zichun. This was to prevent Gavin from attacking him at close range. Of course, Zichun was not afraid. He just did not want to expose too much too early. When Zichun put away the energy, he left 2 for the 2 Strength Realm Cultivators. The 2 Strength Realm Cultivator was stunned. He immediately thanked Gavin and stepped back. Gavin's eyes flashed with a strange light, but he did not say anything. Now that his life was saved, it was time to do other things. The others looked at Zichun with envy, especially when they saw the crystals. They did not know where he found a basket of crystals and used them to ride on Gavin's head. Gavin, who was at 3 Strength Realm, was the undisputed #1 person here. His job was the most profitable. Zichun had become his master. He did not need to do anything in the future and would receive an endless supply of extreme energy. After giving the energy to Zichun, Gavin took Zichun to find a place to stay. It was relatively close to the city. According to Gavin, even if the law-breaking beast attacked, there would be people outside to hold it off. During this time, Gavin occasionally glanced behind Zichun. There were many killing intent crystals that were emitting a bright light. "Do you want them?" Zichun glanced at Gavin. No. Gavin shook his head. Naturally, he did not dare to admit it. Zichun returned to his room and began to cultivate. He knew that powerful combat power was the foundation of everything. That night, there was a knock on the door. Miao Pengfei walked in. The room was very big. Zichun walked out and looked at Miao Pengfei. He asked. No one gave you a hard time, right? Miao Pengfei shook his head and said, No, everyone knows that we came back together. After seeing me, they were quite polite. Miao Pengfei closed the door and sat down beside Zichun. I asked about the situation here. There are at least dozens of places like this. With Pofa City as the center, all cultivators below the second force realm were gathered here. Only those who have reached the 3 strengths realm are qualified to enter Shattering Law City. Zichun listened silently. He took out 50 strands of strength and placed them on the table in front of him. This is... Seeing this, Miao Pengfei was shocked and looked at Zichun in shock. Take this power and think of a way to leave this place, Zichun said in a deep voice. While my deterrence is still present, find another way out. You're leaving? Miao Pengfei asked. Zichun had only become the leader today. Zichun said, no matter how bad this place is, it's still a place with many rules. Jiawen was able to become the strongest person here not only because of his 3 strengths realm strength, but also because of many conflicts of interest. My appearance has disrupted this situation. Zichun was very clear about this. After all, he had lived for countless years and had seen too many schemes. He knew very well what Gavin was thinking, but he did not care about his little scheme because Zichun had his own ideas as well. So, sooner or later, there will be problems. You have to take advantage of this time, when no one dares to provoke you, to find another way out. Zichun gave the power to Miao Pengfei. You leave first, I'll go later. Miao Pengfei hesitated and took the power. The reason why the two of them came back was because the outside world wasn't peaceful, and they didn't have enough extreme energy. So he knew how precious this kind of life item was. Don't contact me for the time being. Taking advantage of the night, Miao Pengfei left. During the day, he had already asked around. As long as it wasn't a large-scale siege, no spell-breaking beasts would dare to come here. After all, there were many people living here. As for the vanishing shadow beasts, they wouldn't appear either. When the sky brightened, Zichun walked out of the room with the crystals on his back and strolled around. Everywhere he went, everyone looked at him and seemed to feel that he was different. Zichun went to find Jiawen. When Jiawen saw Zichun, he tactfully went up and greeted him. Then, he took out more than 100 streams of energy. Zichun put them away calmly, but he was still very surprised. Jiawen could get so much energy every day. After accumulating for a long time, it would definitely be a terrifying number. In the next few days, Zichun went to find Jiawen every day, as if he really treated himself as Jiawen's boss. Jiawen was very tactful. Every time Zichun came, he would take out different amounts of extreme energy, but each time, he would take out more than 100 extreme energy. Even if Zichun continuously refined the energy, he wouldn't be able to refine it all in a short time. Of course, every time Zichun went to find Jiawen, he would bring the basket of killing intent crystals with him. This was also the reason why he was so powerful that he could intimidate everyone. It was the safest to stay by his side. Otherwise, it would be stolen. Every time he passed by, many people would look behind him with strange looks in their eyes. Today, Zichun left as usual. A small leader asked, Sir, are we just going to give him the resources? Jiawen said, There's no other way. You saw the power of those crystals behind him. It's really terrifying. But no matter what, he's only in the second force state. Can't we? The small leader wiped his neck. Forget it. It's not easy for everyone to survive. There's no need to add too many casualties. Sir, you're so kind. Unlike that guy, he killed so many people as soon as he came. Jiawen smiled faintly and didn't say anything else. All he had to do was give out some energy, and he could survive. Why not? Moreover, if Zichun really thought that he had defeated him, he would be courting death. 2 days later, Jiawen took the initiative to find Zichun and gave the energy to Zichun. During this time, he stood outside Zichun's room and looked into the room from time to time. Zichun was worried that the other party was playing tricks on him, so he withdrew the energy and returned to his room. The killing intent crystals were still there. Jiawen left, but he didn't go back. Instead, he went in the direction of Shattering Law City. When he arrived outside the city, there was no city gate, only a space-time passage. Jiawen didn't go in but waited here. Not everyone was qualified to enter. About 2 hours later, An existence surrounded by 4 different types of energy walked out from inside. Sir, there's no more energy this time. Looking at the person, Jiawan said directly. The person glanced at Jiawan, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Do you want to die? Sir, please listen to my explanation. A second realm warrior called Zichun came. He carried a basket of crystals on his back, and the crystals contained a terrifying killing intent. After he appeared, he killed many people and stole my position, as well as all the energy I prepared for you. The man's expression suddenly changed, and he said, What did you say? That person has the killing intent? P.S. Yesterday, he had a small operation in 2 places. After the anesthetic wore off, the pain was unbearable and he couldn't sit still. He even started to doubt his life. After gritting his teeth and writing 2 new chapters, Lei Wu couldn't write anymore. He felt a little better today. Chapter 50:15. There was no update today, but it would be updated tomorrow. Thunder Marshal was not updated today. Please wait for a moment. After the content is updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 50:16. Looking at the Lord's sharp eyes, Kevin was startled. He did not know what a killing crystal was. Is it a killing crystal? The man asked again, looking anxious. What's a killing crystal? Kevin asked in return, confused. The 4th level man was enraged. His eyes flashed coldly. Are you messing with me? Lord, I really don't know what a killing crystal is. Kevin looked wronged. He then explained the situation of the crystals in detail. Oh, right that? He wanted to say the name of the spellbreaker, but he realized that the B*TCH did not tell him the exact name because she despised them. Let's go. Bring me there. The man could not wait. A killing crystal was very important. It was a special crystal that was hard to find and was very precious. He did not expect someone to carry a basket of them to play outside the city. Kevin hesitated. The man glanced at him and thought that he was unwilling to lead the way. His eyes turned extremely cold. Kevin felt the murderous intent in the man's eyes and immediately explained, Don't misunderstand, Lord. It's not that I don't want to bring you there. It's just that if the 2 of us go, we won't be able to return. There was a spell breaker last time. He did not know the name of the spell breaker. He could only tell the Lord what the spell breaker looked like and what happened. Hearing this, the man was enraged. He's just a 2nd level. How dare he attack me? That guy is a bumpkin. He only cares about resources and not people. He already killed a spell breaker. Kevin reminded him kindly, Lord, this is just a precaution. Kevin obviously did not care about the life or death of this lord. He was even happy to see him killed by Zichun. However, if Zichun killed someone this time, he might be implicated. It would be difficult for him to escape. Therefore, he did not dare to take this risk. Once he attacked, he had to kill. Wait here. The man turned and walked back. When he entered the space tunnel, he took out a token. The token glowed and covered his body. That token was equivalent to a ticket to enter the city. Gavin once had the opportunity to obtain one, but he gave up. Compared to inside, his life outside would be much more comfortable. We need at least 3 to ensure that nothing goes wrong. He calculated in his mind that Zichun would definitely die under the siege of 3/4 strength state martial artists. Not long after, the man came out, but there was only one person beside him. The energy surrounding the other person was also at the 4th strength state. Gavin was stunned when he saw the 2 of them. Why are you in a daze? Hurry up and lead the way. The man's face was filled with dissatisfaction. My lord, are there only 2 people? 2 people can't deal with a mere 2nd force state? The other party said coldly, Cut the crap and lead the way. Kevin had a helpless look on his face. They had never seen Zichun before, so they really didn't know how difficult it was to deal with that guy. If they just went over like this, it would definitely be dangerous. While moving forward, Gavin was thinking about how to deal with Zichun. It would be best if he could think of a way to save his own life. After returning, many people along the way were looking at the 3 of them, but they did not dare to approach. Gavin came to Zichun's residence and shouted, Zichun, come out. There are 2 lords looking for you. They want to ask you some questions. You have to answer them properly. Zichun walked out of the room, carrying the basket of killing intent crystals on his back. He looked around and finally fixed his gaze on the 2 4th strength state martial artists. His gaze paused for a moment, then he immediately cupped his fists at the two of them. Show me the crystals behind you. One of the 4th strength state martial artists looked at Zichun. Hearing that, Zichun took out a crystal from behind him and threw it forward. Seeing this, Gavin's face changed drastically, and he had the urge to run away. The crystal in his hand was filled with killing intent, but it did not explode. The other party felt the killing intent crystal and nodded with satisfaction. Not bad. It is indeed a killing intent crystal. Did you get it yourself? Zichun nodded and said, My lord, I was lucky. I found it in the mine, so I brought it back. Your luck is really good. Do you have more? The person who spoke stared straight behind Zichun. What he said was complete nonsense. At this moment, the 2 4th strength state martial artists were not standing together. Gavin was in the other direction. Yes. Zichun put the basket on the ground. They are all here. Seeing this, the other party nodded with satisfaction. Seeing that you are so sensible, I will not pursue the matter of you taking my share. The man who spoke walked forward. In order to show that he had no ill intentions, Zichun took the initiative to step back. The man stepped forward and looked at the shining, killing intent crystals with satisfaction. He carried the bamboo basket and turned to leave. Before leaving, he glanced at Gavin. Gavin immediately cupped his fists and bowed to the other party. Zichun retreated into the room. Hearing the other party's words, he should be completely relieved. After all, the other party did not pursue the matter, which meant that he recognized his identity. This was equivalent to using the killing intent crystals to buy his life. However, Zichun, who had retreated into the room, quickly walked to the window in the opposite direction. Swoosh! He leaped out and quickly ran into the distance. Many people saw Zichun, but they did not understand why he ran away in such a sorry state. Why did he not carry the killing intent crystals? Zichun ran away. He is here. Chase him. At this moment, someone shouted in the distance. The man who left with the killing intent crystals heard the shout. He smiled faintly and said, He is not stupid. He carried the killing intent crystals and walked in the opposite direction. Another person said, Should we go and kill him? The other party laughed and said, Do you need a butcher's knife to kill a chicken? Didn't you see Gavin's eyes? He wanted to eat that kid. The 2 4 strength realm cultivators had left. It was too easy for Gavin and his many subordinates to kill Zichun. Zichun ran in the opposite direction, so he did not have to worry about the 2 4 strength realm cultivators catching up. The reason why he did not kill them directly was because the two of them were obviously prepared. At the same time, Zichun did not think that they could kill the two of them if they were prepared. Even if they could, what should he do next? It must be the endless pursuit from Pofa City. This was not what Zichun wanted to see. Relatively speaking, if he gave up the killing intent crystals and only dealt with the 3 strength realm cultivator, it would be much easier. When Gavin called out to him, Zichun guessed that something was wrong and had a plan in mind. Today, no one needs to work. Follow me to hunt Zichun. Chapter 50-17. Zichun was running frantically in front, and everyone was chasing after him from behind. Everyone had seen how Zichun was flaunting his prowess a few days ago. Kevin would give Zichun a lot of energy every day, so it was natural for him to enjoy the energy. However, without the killing crystal, Zichun had become an ordinary second force realm cultivator. Naturally, he would have to spit out the energy. Stop right there. Kid, leave the energy and we'll spare your life. Everyone was shouting and yelling as they followed behind. Some of them were just doing it for fun, but there were also some who really wanted to snatch Zichun. While they were chasing, some of them were trying to intercept him from both sides. Zichun was trying his best to escape. As for Miao Pengfei, he had already listened to their advice and left. Gavin followed behind with a few leaders surrounding him. He looked at Zichun, who was running away in a sorry state, with a faint and confident smile on his face. At this moment, he was still the boss of everyone. You guys, go over there and block him. Go and call the others over. There's no need to work today. Those who catch Zichun will be rewarded with 100 streams of energy. Those who chop off his arm will be rewarded with 10 streams of energy. Those who chop off a leg will be rewarded with 20 streams of energy. Kevin knew how to motivate people, so he did not take any risks. With the generous reward, everyone rushed forward like crazy. This Zichun really doesn't know what's good for him. He actually dares to go against Sir. That guy is so lucky. Without the killing crystal, he's nothing but a fart. It's a pity that such an idiot actually took away thousands of streams of energy over the past few days. The junior leaders behind Gavin were all flattering him. It was obvious that Zichun had become a target of scorn, and the only thing that awaited him was death. Gavin would still be their boss. Thousands of streams of energy? Kevin glanced at the people beside him and said, "That guy is insatiably greedy. During this period, he has already taken nearly 10,000 streams of energy from me. If we can't get the energy back this time, everyone will have to live frugally from now on." What? When everyone heard this, their expressions changed. They all looked at Zichun in the distance with shock and greed in their eyes. That was close to 10,000 strands of energy. Zichun was very far away from Gavin at the moment and couldn't hear him at all. If he could, he would definitely curse. It had only been a dozen days, and there were more than 100 strands of energy a day. At most, there were less than 2,000 strands of energy. Where did 10,000 strands of energy come from? What Kevin said was not to arouse the greed of the crowd, but to provide a portion of the amount and find a gap to fill. He was in charge of a lot of people and had to deal with a lot of energy every day. How could there only be 100 or so energy that slipped through the net? Gavin looked at the eager leaders beside him. "Don't say I didn't warn you. I don't care what you're thinking. If you can really get the energy back from Zichun, it's your own ability. But Zichun must die. That's what it means. Don't worry, sir." After receiving the order, they immediately rushed forward. They were all in the second force state and had a group of subordinates. Of course, it was easy to deal with Zichun, who had no killing crystals. Gavin followed behind, walking at a moderate pace. This was the strategy. Not only did he save his life, but he also gained a lot. Zichun, who was running away, glanced behind him and found that those people seemed to be on steroids. Not only did they not give up, but they were even more excited. There were so many people. If one of them stepped forward and slashed, Zichun would die. Without the killing crystals, Zichun could only run. As long as there was no one in front of him, he didn't have to worry about taking out a strand of energy to refine. Anyway, he still had more than 1,000 strands of energy. He didn't have to worry about this consumption. At this moment, his expression suddenly changed. There were people in front of him. There were a total of 5 people. He didn't know if they had coincidentally returned, but when they saw this scene, they immediately blocked his path. Damn it! Zichun cursed. He could only change his direction and run forward at a slanted angle. The 5 people also changed their direction. One of them sneered and said, "Kid, stay here." Light flashed in Zichun's hand, and more than a dozen strands of energy appeared. "How about we make a deal?" As he spoke, Zichun immediately waved his hand. A golden light flashed and the energy flew to the side. The 5 people's eyes immediately lit up. At this moment, someone shouted from behind, "Stop him! He has more than 10,000 strands of energy." More than 10,000 strands of energy? Their expressions changed, and they looked at Zichun in disbelief. In front of 10,000 strands of energy, the dozen strands of energy were obviously nothing in their eyes. Their eyes were filled with greed. Immediately, 3 of them ran forward, wanting to stop Zichun. However, the other 2 people hesitated. They didn't follow. Instead, they changed their direction and went straight for the energy. Are the 2 of you stupid? You don't want nearly 10,000 strands of energy? Why do you want so little? The person behind shouted. The 2 of them didn't reply. They picked up the energy and split it. Looking at the front, the 3 people rushed forward and blocked Zichun. At this moment, Zichun took out his bone staff and immediately swung it forward. Infinite golden light burst out. The bone staff fell and scattered rays of light. Before one of the 2 strength-level cultivators could react, the ray of light descended. In an instant, half of his body disappeared. During this time, Zichun didn't stop. He rushed forward, and there were 2 more wounds on his body. He was attacked by the other 2 people, but his injuries weren't serious. The person who lost half of his body fell down. He screamed like a pig being slaughtered. The other 2 people were stunned. They didn't expect this. At this moment, Zichun turned back and swung his bone staff again. Since he chose to attack, there was no reason for him to hold back. Bang! Bang! The short delay allowed the pursuers to close the distance between them, and Zichun gave the 2 of them 2 more hits. The 2 people fell down. Even though they used their energy to recover, their injuries were too serious. It was impossible to save their lives. The blood-curdling screams caused the hearts of those who heard them to tremble. Those who were nearing Zichun all instinctively stopped. The 3 people disappeared in the shrill screams. Their voices lingered for a long time. In the distance, the 2 people who had received more than 10 strands of energy looked at each other and saw the joy in each other's eyes. They weren't greedy. Instead, they had gained something. After killing the 3 people, Zichun quickly fled. Because the person in front of him had stopped, the distance between them, which had been closed earlier, had widened again. The others were scared and slowed down. Surround him first, then kill him slowly. The winner will be rewarded with 300 strands of energy. At this moment, Kevin's voice sounded from behind. His eyes were fixed on the bone staff in Zichun's hand. His eyes were full of greed. Such a huge reward was worth the risk. No one hesitated and chased after him. Chapter 50:18. There were too many of them. If he wanted to fight them head-on, it would be almost impossible to win. Therefore, Zichun kept running to buy time. He planned to make his move at night. As night fell, the surroundings immediately turned dark. The battle cries behind him continued. Stop! Kid, don't run. Do you dare to fight me? Stop if you can. Watch me finish you with one hand. The shouts behind him continued. Everyone was very excited by the huge reward. After all, they only received 2 strands of energy every day. But this time, Kevin rewarded them with hundreds of strands of energy. It could be said to be a huge reward. During the day, although Zichun's attack was shocking, everyone could see that without the killing crystal, he could only kill 1 person at a time. During this time, as long as they seized the opportunity, each person could kill Zichun. There were hundreds of people chasing after Zichun. It could even be more. Therefore, no one thought that they were the unlucky ones who would be killed with a single blow. As night fell, some people slowed down because the night was accompanied by intense danger. But there were more people who were not afraid. They were still shouting and yelling excitedly. Kevin was very satisfied with this result. With him leading the group, Zichun would definitely die this time. And he was determined to get the bone staff in Zichun's hand. In the night, Zichun was shrouded in energy. He was as conspicuous as a lighthouse in the night. It was very difficult to lose him. As long as this continued, death was only a matter of time for Zichun. Zichun glanced behind him. The others were also very conspicuous. If Zichun was like a lighthouse, then they were living targets. The night would provide great convenience for Zichun. He took a look at his surroundings. Without using his immortal spiritual eye, this place was pitch black and he couldn't see anything. However, this didn't stop him from turning around and giving everyone a surprise attack on this night. Turning his head and continuing to run, Zichun's eyes lit up and his vision brightened. Because his back was facing the crowd, no one discovered his immortal spiritual eyes. Zichun saw a piece of high ground. He wanted to set up an ambush there. Moving forward quickly, Zichun didn't go up the high ground. Instead, he circled to the back of the high ground. He's running away. Go after him. Zichun has disappeared. Everyone hurry. Don't let him get away. That's right. That's several hundred strands of energy. We can't let him escape. When the people behind saw this, they immediately shouted. Everyone rushed forward crazily, and everyone increased their speed. Shwa, shwa, shwa. Immediately, some people rushed over the high ground. Zichun looked at the backs of those people and followed them in a flash. After arriving behind a person, Zichun swung the bone staff forward. Following a flash of light, Zichun's sneak attack hit the back of a second strength realm expert's head. Buzz. With a flash of light, the other party's head disappeared. His body fell straight down and died in an instant. Here, Zichun is here. Immediately, someone cried out in alarm when they saw Zichun. At the same time, they quickly retreated. As long as they surrounded him, Zichun would definitely die. Therefore, there was no need to fight Zichun head-on. Zichun flashed forward and swung his bone staff. Following 2 strikes, 2 people who couldn't dodge in time were sent flying. After they landed, they let out blood-curdling screams. It looked like they were about to lose their lives. Zichun immediately rushed forward and continued to run. Occasionally, he would turn his head to look behind him to see if there were any other opportunities. This time, Zichun killed 3 people in a sneak attack. He couldn't kill everyone at once. That would put himself in a very dangerous situation. He had to find an opportunity to slowly exhaust them. After all, his biggest advantage was his endurance. The energy in his body was his biggest advantage. The second time, Zichun used the environment to launch a sneak attack and killed another 3 people. This made the pursuers feel apprehensive. Being able to obtain energy from Zichun was great, but losing their lives because of it was something they didn't want to accept. Therefore, they all became more careful. Kevin, who was at the back, noticed this change and was thinking of a good solution. If these people gave up now, it would be very difficult for him to kill Zichun. The power of that bone staff was really terrifying. While he coveted it, he was also full of fear. Right now, he just wanted to sit back and enjoy the fruits of others' labor. He wanted to use these people to kill Zichun and obtain the bone staff. Quick, Zichun is slowing down. At first, some people had already planned to give up. However, at that moment, they noticed that Zichun's speed was no longer as fast as before. The distance between the 2 parties was quickly closing. Could he be exhausted? Everyone seemed to see hope and was ready to make a last stand. Zichun's eyes lit up when he saw a group of lawbreaker beasts. There were dozens of them. This was what he had been waiting for all night. Finally, it had arrived. At that moment, Zichun was facing these lawbreaker beasts head-on. Naturally, he had to slow down and wait for the others to catch up. The distance between the 3 parties was getting closer and closer. At that moment, someone finally discovered the lawbreaker beasts and immediately exclaimed, "Lawbreaker beasts! There are lawbreaker beasts here." Unfortunately, their eyesight was not good in the dark. By the time they discovered the lawbreaker beasts, the 2 parties had already come into contact. Zichun rushed into the midst of the lawbreaker beasts, and they followed closely behind. Some of the lawbreaker beasts attacked Zichun, but more of them went straight for the pursuers behind him. Swoosh, swoosh. Light flickered under Zichun's feet. With the help of the immortal spiritual eye, he dodged several attacks from the lawbreaker beasts. At that moment, the others had already rushed over and were fighting with the lawbreaker beasts. Zichun took the opportunity to turn around and follow the lawbreaker beasts forward, taking advantage of the chaos to attack. In an instant, all sorts of roars were heard, and many people retreated in panic. A lawbreaker beast pounced on a second realm cultivator. After pouncing on him in an instant, it viciously bit at his neck and snapped it. The second realm cultivator held the energy in his hand, and his body struggled. After a moment, he turned into light and dissipated. This was the first time Zichun had seen a lawbreaker beast kill someone. Its attacks were very sharp, and the places it bit were almost all vital points. Light flickered all around, and the second realm cultivators died one after another. Zichun's body shone with golden light as he wandered among the crowd. Swoosh! A lawbreaker beast rushed at him. Zichun did not kill it, but used the bone staff in his hand to block, and used the force of the attack to knock it away. These lawbreaker beasts were his temporary companions, and Zichun did not want to kill any of them. At the same time, Zichun attacked with his left hand. Threads crisscrossed and swept past the body of a second realm cultivator. He could not kill lawbreaker beasts, but he could kill humans. Wong. Light flashed past, and the opponent's body was immediately disintegrated. He did not even have time to scream. Run! Faced with such a terrifying situation, an unknown existence suddenly yelled out. The others, who were already frightened, immediately began to retreat. A team of hundreds was defeated by dozens of lawbreaker beasts and one Zichun. When one person retreated, the rest retreated. In an instant, everyone began to run. Chapter 50:19. Everyone began to retreat, each and every one of them terrified. They had an absolute advantage in terms of numbers. However, in the face of these law-breaking beasts and Zichen's attack, they were completely defeated. Don't run. Kill him. He's alone. You can totally stop him. Kill those law-breaking beasts first, then kill Zichen. Some of the smaller leaders at the back were yelling at the top of their lungs as they watched the fleeing crowd. However, it was useless. The crowd had already scattered, and it would be much more difficult to gather again. What the F***ck are you running for? Can't a group of you kill one person? A burly man scolded. However, it was useless. Swoosh. While Zichen was dodging, a law-breaking beast launched an attack at him. After dodging, the other party went for the nearest target instead of chasing after Zichen. Bang! The bone staff in Zichen's hand fell, and a level 2 cultivator was knocked down. Before he could die, a law-breaking beast stepped forward and bit off his head. Zichen had formed a tacit understanding with these law-breaking beasts as he rushed forward. He didn't need to kill everyone. As long as he knocked them down, the law-breaking beasts would step forward and kill them. However, these law-breaking beasts didn't seem to be very intelligent. Under such circumstances, several of them still attacked Zichen. Fortunately, Zichen didn't let down his guard and dodged them one by one. From the looks of it, Zichen couldn't bear to kill any of these law-breaking beasts. Kevin's face was ghastly. The two sides weren't on the same level, but his people had all retreated. Their faces were full of fear. People who didn't know better would think that they had encountered a group of vanishing shadow beasts. He was regretting his decision. If he had known that these people were so weak, he would have brought some of his trusted subordinates. They wouldn't have ended up in such a sorry state. Now that they had been defeated, no one wanted to be the one who stayed behind to die. Therefore, hundreds of people were being chased by dozens of law-breaking beasts and Zichen. Moreover, they were dying as they ran. Gavin glanced at the burly man beside him and roared, "Follow me!" As soon as he shouted, more than 20 people walked out. They were all his trusted subordinates. "Let's go. Follow me. You guys deal with the law-breaking beast. I'll kill that brat." The burly man's expression was cold. Killing intent flickered in his eyes as he walked forward. Along the way, he would catch any entity that tried to escape and toss them aside. "Zichen, do you dare to fight me face to face?" In his hand was an enormous wooden blade. Even in the dark of night, the blade that was raised high still emitted a cold glint. Zichen glanced at him as if he was looking at an idiot. However, he still couldn't ignore the other party's provocation, because if he did, the others would follow suit. As Zichen followed the law-breaking beasts forward, his eyes locked onto the other party. Everyone else was retreating, but the other party took the initiative to move forward. The law-breaking beast naturally knew who to attack, so it naturally treated them as its targets. Zichen gripped the bone staff and moved forward. Bang! With a tap of his foot, Zichen suddenly exerted his strength and leaped forward. He swept over everyone's heads and went straight for the burly man. "You're courting death." The burly man roared angrily. The wooden blade in his hand suddenly emitted a dazzling light as it slashed towards Zichen. At the same time, there seemed to be precepts circulating on the blade. The way of wind. Suddenly, a strong wind blew from all directions, blowing against Zichen's cheek. It brought with it some pain. A sharp and fierce aura rushed toward him. Zichen was a little surprised, but he wasn't afraid. Looking down from above, he smashed down with the bone staff in his hand. Infinite golden light bloomed, and a powerful aura surged. The bone staff carried with it an unstoppable force. The moment it came into contact with the long blade, the blade light was destroyed. The light sprinkled down, and the aura was still terrifying. When it landed on the long blade, the entire blade was destroyed. The light continued to spread, extending to half of the burly man's arm. His arm and one side of his body disappeared. The anger in the burly man's eyes immediately turned into fear, and he screamed loudly. His voice was very shrill. Two streams of energy appeared in his other hand. He didn't immediately refine them like the others who wanted to survive. Instead, he directly put them into his mouth and devoured them. The burly man looked at Zichun, his eyes full of desire to live. Zichun's expression was cold. If the burly man lived, he would die. He raised the bone staff again and smashed down. Wong. The light disappeared, and the burly man's figure disappeared. Such a scene created an even more shocking effect. The second strength realm cultivators who followed the burly man immediately abandoned the law-breaking beasts and began to flee. Everyone was in the second strength realm, and they couldn't say who was stronger or weaker. The reason why they were divided into small leaders was because they had a good relationship with Kevin. Therefore, everyone had a rough understanding of their own combat strength. With the burly man easily killed, they would be fools if they didn't run. This could be said to have destroyed everyone's confidence. Those who wanted to give it a try before all ran away in an instant. For a moment, no one resisted. The law-breaking beasts were still in pursuit, reaping one life after another. Kevin, do you dare to fight me? Zichun followed behind the law-breaking beasts. Now, there was almost no need for him to do anything. The law-breaking beasts would take the initiative to attack. Therefore, he shouted at Kevin when he saw him. Kevin's expression was very ugly. Although he wasn't afraid of Zichun, those law-breaking beasts were troublesome. He looked around and saw that everyone had run away. Under such circumstances, it was obviously unrealistic to organize a new attack. Therefore, Kevin also retreated. However, before he left, he glanced at Zichun and said coldly, "Count yourself lucky. The next time we meet, you will definitely die. There's no need to wait for the next time. Let's do it now." Zichun rushed forward, his eyes full of murderous intent. Everyone else had run away. This was an opportunity for him. An excellent opportunity to kill Kevin. When Kevin saw Zichun chasing after him, his expression changed greatly, and he sped up again. He didn't want to go head-to-head with Zichun at this time. There was a difference in power between the two of them. Therefore, in terms of speed, Kevin surpassed Zichun. Soon, Kevin escaped into the crowd. It was almost impossible to find him without using the immortal spiritual eye. After a while, Zichun gave up. Kevin was completely gone. He quickly left before those law-breaking beasts turned around. He obviously couldn't stay here any longer. He walked in another direction. Back then, when Miao Pengfei left, he deliberately left a path for him, and the other party followed this path and went forward to investigate. Zichun followed this path until dawn. During this time, he didn't encounter any danger. Chapter 50-20. For the past few days, he had been writing while lying on his stomach. This posture was very uncomfortable. Today, he was not in the right state to write. Tomorrow, he would update. Thunder Marshal has no updates today. Currently in progress, please wait for a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update.